Hey, this is Soma79 with a special announcement. My new Mega Mix is up. My MF Doom Mega Mix, Oxidation Moonsday, is now available. Go to www.soma79.com/doom to check it out. It's a 30-minute mix that I did of MF Doom raps over my own beats. I really enjoy it. I hope you really enjoy it. So check it out. Tell a friend. Peace. Hey, welcome to the newest episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. Thank you so much for joining me today. My guests today are Jeh Inatra and Shawn Smoke. They've both been previous guests on the podcast. Jeh is a rapper who's on my last album, Quiet Life, Loud Friends. Him and I collaborated on the track Put the Mic Down. And Shawn Smoke works for local wrestling federation, Wrestling Federation of America. He does some camera work there and some production work. And we're all big wrestling fans, so we decided to do a special episode where we talk about Wrestlemania season. For those that don't know, Wrestlemania season typically runs from the Royal Rumble, which is tomorrow, January 27th, through Wrestlemania, which is, I believe, April 6th and 7th this year. So it's sort of the what you consider maybe the postseason or the season finale of wrestling, if there were such a thing. It's when all the most important things happen and the most exciting things happen. So this year in particular, with the WWE really being on a hot streak and there being just so many names at the top of the card, there's a lot of things that are undecided. There's a lot of things that are in play that haven't really been, fleshed out yet as of when I'm recording this, which is January 6th, the day after the first SmackDown of the year. And I don't know, it was really fun to talk to Shawn and Jeh about this and get their thoughts. And we're still all excited about watching it, because I still believe that with all that's on the table now of what could happen, there's still going to be some surprises that we don't even know about that are going to kind of blow us away. And that's my hope. So, hope you enjoy this episode. If you're a wrestling fan, you probably won't, and maybe come back next week. But if you are a wrestling fan, I hope you enjoy this conversation. It's funny, I realized after we hung up that even this conversation goes for 2 hours long, and there kept being names that we hadn't even brought up yet about what they'd be doing for WrestleMania. And I don't think we even got talking about Brock Lesnar and Logan Paul to the very end. And I realized after we hung up, I don't think LA Knight's name comes up at all during this whole conversation. And he's one of the hottest, probably the third biggest baby face they have in the company now, behind Cody and Punk. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed the episode, and enjoy WrestleMania season, enjoy the Royal Rumble starting tomorrow night if you're watching this the day it drops. All right, peace.
For the plight of those without rights, I'm sick of being nice. Time to drop the mic. Put the mic down before we fight now. Put the mic down before we fight now. Just put the mic down before we fight now. I'm not asking, I'm telling you right now. Yeah, this beat is unorthodox. You might wanna call a doctor. I'm sick with my words. Out rap Sinatra, you sound quite absurd. Oh, the nerve of these piss poor rappers. Sorry for laughing.
Hey, welcome to the newest episode of the Articulate Ox podcast. I am your host, Soma79. This is a very special episode, the first of its kind, maybe something we'll do every year. We'll see. WrestleMania season preview. So as anybody who paid attention to the podcast this year knows, the conversation has turned to wrestling more times than I can count. And thank God, because I can talk about that forever. So we decided to do here is I brought back a couple of past guests. My man, Jeh Inatra, who is an MC and was featured on my album, Quiet Life, Loud Friends, on the track Put the Mic Down. And we also got Shawn Smoke here, recently star of Good Burger 2, with Kenan Thompson and Hush Harding, and the other guy's name I can't remember right now.
Los Fidel was in that.
There you go. And you do work for Wrestling Federation of America, production work and stuff. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Let's talk about some wrestling. What's going on, guys?
Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Oh, good. Happy New Year. Good.
Excellent. So we were just before we started talking about Raw this week. I'm actually just watching it now because I didn't have a chance to watch it. So we're recording this the first week of the year. I just watched Day One Douchebag for the first time and enjoyed that. The Rock laying it into Ginger Mahal. Very well done segment. And so now we're well on our way to WrestleMania season. December is usually a very slow month for pro wrestling. That was not the case this December with the return of CM Punk to the WWE, which was huge, was one of the biggest, numbers they've had in a long time for social media and all that great stuff. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about. So let's talk first about the Rumble. This is when WrestleMania season really kicks off. The Royal Rumble is going to be in St. Petersburg, Florida on the 27th of January, which should be tomorrow if this episode drops when I expect it to. Jay, you're in Florida. Any plans on attending?
And I wish. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to make it, even though it's like in my backyard. But yeah, man, I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm going to catch it on Peacock, like everything else. So definitely going to be tuned in and locked in on it.
Yeah, I had actually thought about going earlier, and then the thing that turned me away is when I saw that it was an open air stadium. I'm like, I don't want to deal with that. I'm just like, that just seems like a pain if it rains or anything. So
if it rains, and you already know it's Florida, so there's a pretty high chance it's gonna.
Yep. So let's talk about predictions. What do we think going in? Right now, only a few people I think are announced for the Rumble. I would say the favorites are probably Punk and Cody. Who else? Who else you guys think are possible winners? Jay, we'll start with you.
Possible winners. I'm gonna definitely go with those two top picks. I don't know, because with the reemergence of The Rock, I don't know if they're gonna kind of try to incorporate him into it, throw him in it. I know he was kind of taking a dig, like he's back to handle something. So there's a possibility if he does make it to the Rumble, he's probably a fan favorite.
Right.
Just off the reaction that he got.
One thing I did hear about The Rock earlier today, I do on PW Insider, is that thing with The Rock came together very quickly, like similar to how the CM Punk deal did. So they it's possible they don't even know what they're going to do with The Rock yet. Because I think everybody assumes The Rock's got to be a WrestleMania match, but these days, we saw matches like Goldberg versus Undertaker in Saudi Arabia. We saw HBK's return there. So it's like the match really could be anywhere with the way they promote now. So.
Oh yeah, for sure. It could be anywhere.
How were you, Sean?
Honestly, like I said.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go.
Sean, how were your thoughts on the Rumble? Who do you think are some of the favorites?
There's only two in my mind. It's got to be Cody or Punk.
Yeah,
that's the story they've been telling. With that being said, man, like, hey, Rocky could, it's not going to happen, but you never know. WWE, Rocky could be like a surprise entrant, but he was gassed after one people's elbow, and that's going to be an issue.
Right. I'm going to need a wider television because the fucking size of that guy doesn't even fit on my screen anymore.
Yeah, he's huge. It's crazy.
It's fucking nuts.
I feel like you never, like you said, though, with the Rumble, and I don't want to jump ahead, the Elimination Chamber is always a great option, as they have like 60-something thousand seats to fill at the arena in Australia. If they announce The Rock for that, I'm sure they fill those 60, because I think there's only about 30 or 40,000 sold at the time we're speaking now.
Right. One thing to keep in mind, too, shows like Elimination Chamber used to be throwaway shows. There are no throwaway shows anymore under Triple H. So this show will be important for one reason or another.
It will be. And, there's a lot to sift through, because, like, you got Punk coming back. Now, we have Cody's story to finish, which a lot of fans are very passionate about and don't want to see go unfinished, nor do they probably want to wait another year until Roman breaks people's records even more. So, Punk and Rollins seem to be a safe bet on that side. And it's just like, I don't know where else, they can go.
Right.
Punk, Rollins, Roman, Rock. At the Chamber, you can still do Cody and Roman. Yeah. Now, if you take the title off Roman somehow beforehand, which has been rumored, my thing is this: if Rock still wants to be the head of the table, if Rock wants to be head of the table, and you take the title off of Roman and you give it to whoever, how are you still the head of the table if you don't have the gold?
Yep.
So with that being said, I feel like Roman can't lose the belt if they're going to go in that direction with Rocky. However long they do it for, and if they do it at the Chamber, I mean, Jesus, there's a lot that they have to figure out.
They have to make decisions between a couple important things. It's like, you know, that they would like to be able to say that Roman held the belt longer than Hulk. If that's something that, that's something that I think is they'd like to if they could, but then that means that they can't have Cody win at WrestleMania. And then I mean, there's part of me that's like, The Rock should be the last guy that Roman has to go through to beat that. So I would say even Rock and Roman at SummerSlam, so that he can be that final obstacle to getting there. But what does that mean for Cody to lose again? It's like, for Cody to lose again, then it's almost like Roman then has to still retain the title for the whole year so he can beat him at Mania next year or something. Because after Cody loses twice, it's like,
it's over.
Right. It's like,
what do you do?
Right.
You can't. Like, you really shouldn't have Cody wrestle and lose again in the main events of WrestleMania, unless you're going to guarantee him like the craziest story and comeback, and people are still willing to buy in for WrestleMania 41. And if people still care about it, then like, you're really pushing it. But it's just
and if he's not in the main event of this WrestleMania, that doesn't make any sense either because of where he's been portrayed the entire year.
So I was at a house show. I was at a house show in Boston at the Garden, December 27th, and Cody Rhodes wrestled Dominic Mysterio on the match before intermission. And I was like, wow, Cody really fell down the card. Like, Dominic's not down. Like, that's not a downward look. I'm not down and on Dominic.
Punk's first match back.
That was the night after Punk's first match back at MSG. And it was like, Cody's still not main eventing at all, though. Like, they had Shinsuke and Drew against Seth in the main event. Cody was nowhere near that. So
could be they just don't want Cody to risk an injury, because a match with Dom is going to be mostly theatrics and it's going to be a lot less risky. I mean, it could be something like that.
Good point. Good point. You just don't want to see, in the eyes of the fans, Cody slipping down the charts a little bit.
Right. Well, that's one of the problems WWE has that they haven't had in a while, is they almost have too many top level guys, because it's like names that haven't even come up yet are people like Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, Damian Priest, he's still walking around.
Drew is still in there.
Yeah, Drew too. And it's like, these are all guys who have legitimate claims at the top of the card, but I don't see a lot of them making it into top level matches at WrestleMania this year.
I think the closest Drew is going to get is probably at Rollins. I mean, we've seen it happen a couple of times already, so it's like, I think that's probably the extent of how far they're going to push him as far as like being in the main card or the main event picture.
Right. Which brings up something about, we talked about Rollins Punk before. My thought is, if you can make Austin Punk happen, that is the WrestleMania 40 match. But the problem with that is how do you do it face versus face? Because you can't neither of them are going to be heels by WrestleMania. Or it's like, it's not worth flipping. Yeah. And even especially not Austin, because it's like, that never works and they're never going to turn. It's like, so the fans are going to go nuts for it, but I don't know what the story is for. I don't know how you build that story besides it just being something people have wanted,
You might be able to go back and like show like the WWE 2K13 interview footage or whatever. They were on the same platform when it originally was like birthed as an idea, and use that as some type of ammunition. But I think that would be a great out somehow. If we could get that, I think Punk could turn heel, and you could Punk's one of those guys. He can turn heel, last as a heel, a believable heel, a top heel. And 6 months later, just because it's Austin, he'll turn heel. And then 6 months later, they'll find a legitimate reason for him to go face again, and everybody will buy in. That, to me, is one of the beauty of like most beautiful pieces of CM Punk's everything, is that he has that ability to switch believably and organically, seemingly so much. He can switch it over and it wouldn't cost him too much, especially for Austin, where like, you're not going to go against Austin.
Right.
The fans aren't, you know what I mean?
Right.
But
that's true. Yeah. I think, and it's also, I'm sure Punk is looking for his WrestleMania moments. Punk versus, it was occurring to me earlier today that Punk versus Rollins is sort of face on face too. And I was wondering if they were maybe doing that to kind of feel out a way to do a face versus face with Austin or not. But I don't know. I guess because we know Punk's going to be in the Rumble, so they're not going to wrestle at the Rumble. I guess whoever comes out the winner of that, assuming it's, how, I'm trying to think, Does Rollins have a match at the Rumble, or like that belt's not going to be
Hasn't been
defended?
announced.
Okay.
No, it hasn't been announced yet.
And
If he does, I haven't heard anything about it.
and these days they seem to only do like 5-match cards for these. So you have the women's Rumble, which we haven't talked about yet, the men's Rumble, and then wouldn't be surprised if a Gunther match or something like that else in there. But let's talk about the women's Rumble for a minute. I mean, whoever wins that is most likely going to be probably going up against Rhea Ripley, I would think, unless they have some sort of special attraction match planned for her, which I wouldn't be surprised by either. Any thoughts on winners of the women's Rumble?
Jade. That's where you debut Jade.
Hoping they would do that. Like,
if she
like we're
if
still waiting.
If Triple H thinks she's ready and has all the faith in her, they'll throw her in there. Because then you could have that match at WrestleMania. And then she could be on the grand stage. You could create a new star. That's what they do.
So Jay, as someone who doesn't watch AEW, what is your did you know of Jade before they started bringing her around WWE, or did you just become aware of her then?
No, I actually caught a couple of her like clips from her matches. I didn't watch like the full matches. I caught clips, and she's a powerhouse, bro. Like she definitely has, I think, that perfect element that can combat a Rhea Ripley. Like, because right now Rhea Ripley's like running through the women's division, bro. Like, there's not too many women that can hold their own against her. But I feel like with Jade's athleticism, her strength, her charisma, her in-ring presence, like she can actually hold her own with Rhea, and it'd be a great match, I think, personally.
Yeah. I think Rhea could lead her too. I think that's what I'm assuming we're gonna need to see with Jade. One of the problems with Jade is before was the women's division in AEW didn't have a whole lot of people that could help her get better. I mean, it had some good workers, but it didn't have the Natty Neidharts, even like the Charlotte Flairs, the Becky Lynch,
the veterans,
right? Yeah. Or even like the Fit Finleys. I don't know if he's still there at WWE. I think he might be gone now, but they
his
have
son is.
Oh yeah, his son is there. Yep. They have such a good they do such a good job. Like the training center is the place for Jade to try to learn. If she can't learn there, then she can't learn. But she looks
she's loving it there too.
Yeah. So
she's loving it. Like, I hear nothing but good things coming from her development there. So
right. And what I've heard too, that she's very motivated. Like, it's funny too, you look at the people who have left AEW recently. I mean, and not even like a lot of backstage people as well, like the QT Marshalls, the guy who went to go work at the Barclays Center. I can't remember his name right now. But he used to book all the buildings, which is a tough job to fill. Cody,
the merch lady, the Buck's wife.
The Buck's wife left, which is an interesting one. Then you got Cody and Punk. And Jade. It seems like a lot of these people, we're talking about Jade possibly main eventing WrestleMania. She hasn't even debuted yet. Punk's going to be in a high level thing as long as he's healthy, and so is Cody. So it's interesting to see that there's a lot of people running from AEW in not very prominent spots. I mean, Cody was getting booed on the way out. Jade left on good terms, and Punk left how Punk left, and these people are walking into main event spots in WrestleMania, which is interesting.
It's very. Tony Khan can't be a happy camper. As much as he puts on the happy camper face, he can't be a happy camper right now.
No, I don't
he's
think
losing
so.
Like his big attractions, these stars, man. Like, and it goes to show you like the actual environment of WWE that can actually pull these stars from AEW, and they can literally go back and feel at home and have top spots like that. It speaks to the culture of WWE versus AEW.
Tony Khan, AEW was a really, really great option for guys when the other option was working for Vince McMahon, but it seems like when the other option is working for Triple H, that's not good for Tony Khan.
Not at all.
It's like the one thing that I think that's shown us is that if guys like Edge and CM Punk can't really, Punk made a big difference in that company, but it's also not lost that Collision debuted with a really big number and then started dropping. So the problem is like Punk wasn't enough to save AEW. Edge didn't move the needle at all. And he does good work. I mentioned, I don't think it was before we even started recording, I stopped watching AEW the moment that Swerve Strickland's blood went into Adam Page's throat. I was very disgusted. I felt like my stomach just turned and I felt like embarrassed. And I was just like, that was the line that once I crossed it, Like I was watching the main event that night with MJF and Jay White, and I was excited for that match, and the match turned into a joke where two-legged guys couldn't beat two one-legged guys, and I'm just like, this match is insane, and I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah, it's too much. That right there though, that was just in the wrong era. If that happened in the ECW arena, 1996, 1997, that would have been one of the most legendary moments ever, probably for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
But I think it would have went over a little differently. But I think that's also what they maybe were trying to recreate or like rekindle in a sense of like, we're so hardcore about this shit.
Yeah.
And to me, like, I've never really been a big Hangman fan. But regardless of of what happened in that match, Swerve didn't drink the blood.
Swerve is on his way to the top.
One of my favorite modern day wrestlers ever.
Swerve versus Will Ospreay may get me back to watch some AEW. If they do Swerve versus Ospreay, that sounds like a hell of a match.
I need them to build a story with that.
Yeah, well.
Thank God they got Prince Nana, because Prince Nana like just does it on his own. Like I don't even think Tony would give them ideas. Like, but Prince Nana been around for a long time, and he
ROH legend.
Yeah, man, I've seen him at the Town Hall in Branching, Mass. The same shows as the Armory in Branching, Mass. For the like second anniversary Ring of Honor shows, and then even beyond that, like Scramble Cage Melees and stuff like that, where I was at. Prince Nana was there, CM Punk was there, Samoa Joe was there, AJ Styles was there, the Briscoes were there, and I just remember where I was, CM Punk, and who was the other guy I was just talking about?
Nana.
Yeah, Nana. What I'm saying is, with his experience, if Tony gives him no direction, and they're like, "Hey, you guys are having a match," because I'm a matchmaker more than I am a booker. Here's the match, and Nana's gonna be like, "All right, here's how we're gonna," and Swerve too. Swerve is gonna. There's gonna be a meeting of the minds, and then they're gonna go to Hangman, and Hangman's either gonna be with it or he's not. But that's how that angle would probably play out, is because of the guys themselves coming up with it.
Yeah,
which I appreciate more in a sense, but that's also why AEW is probably in the position it's in.
Right, because it's like that's all well and good if you're giving Christian the right to do that, because he's Christian, but like even some of the stuff MJF's been doing with his main event power, I'm like, oh man, you need someone else writing with you, because it ain't all working. And I love MJF.
I think he's done. He's done over there. I think a lot of people are saying it's a work. I don't think so.
We'll see. So what about, Jay, do you, as someone who doesn't watch AEW, and as me, someone who still pays attention but doesn't really watch it, is there anybody over there that you're aware of that you think is someone that would make a big impact in WWE should they come over?
I would say just off the top of my head, I would like to see Kenny Omega over there, because I do appreciate what he does in the ring. Kenny Omega. I would definitely say it would be cool. I know it's not going to happen, but it'd be cool to see John Moxley back over, for sure.
It would. That Shield reunion would be pretty special.
And just to see where those guys actually took their careers, like after the Shield, like they're all main eventers. They all end up winning titles. They all want to do like great things, like solo. But yeah, I know it wouldn't happen, but that'd be great to see them back.
I bet though there'll be some point in the WWE ring all three of them will be in there. If not in the next year, 5 years, 10 years, it seems like if there's an opportunity to do that under Triple H, he would probably want him. He understands the value of a moment.
Exactly. He was in that era. He was in that time where the Shield was huge, and it was something to behold. So
Shield versus Evolution, the debut of Blutista, that was amazing.
That's what's up. So that would be cool to see him back over there. I don't really know too many of the main event carders over there. I would say probably.
Well, a lot of them because he used to work in WWE.
Yeah. It's just
Samoa Joe is their new champ, which is cool.
Which belt do you have?
He's got the world. He beat MJF at that pay-per-view that I didn't watch the other day. So he's he's the world AEW World Heavyweight Champion. Samoa Joe's an all-time favorite of mine. It's any chance give that guy the belt. He deserves it.
Yeah, since ECW days, he's been a beast. So it's like Yeah, it's Samoa Joe. I'm actually surprised he's still wrestling. Thought he would have took like a behind the scenes gig or something like that.
It's like just like the name Samoa Joe. It's not particularly menacing, but you know if someone's named Samoa Joe, you're not gonna fuck with him. Like it's just
No,
it's not
no.
like Killer Mike, but like just like
It's like you just know you're not gonna mess with this person, and you're probably not gonna fare well.
yeah, it sounds like somebody that has machetes for teeth. Like, and that dude's amazing. Like he's absolutely amazing. So let's talk a little bit. All right. So if we're thinking that it's gonna be either Punk or Cody coming out of the Rumble, what I don't think that we're going to be seeing this year, which was the big Vince McMahon favorite, is the putting up your title shot at the Elimination Chamber. I'm assuming what it'll be is the Elimination Chamber will probably decide the other championship match. Like the Rumble will decide one, and the Chamber possibly decide. That seems to be what would make the most sense. So let's think about that a little bit. So let's do this. Punk, if you had to come down to it, Punk or Cody, who do you think is going to win?
I would say since we've already seen Cody, I'm going with Punk. Personally, I'm going with him. He had a huge pop when he came back. He's pretty much got the wave now. He's got the people behind him. Not saying that Cody doesn't, but we've already seen this play out at the previous WrestleMania with Cody and Roman Reigns. So I would say Punk probably has that slight edge over Cody.
All right. I can't disagree. Punk has all the like you said, he's got the wave right now. And if you don't have Punk win, you got to have it be Cody again. And we've seen that.
Seen it.
We've done the 2-time Rumble winners before. HBK, Austin. Now he'd be in like some elite company if he did win a back-to-back Rumble. I just don't see. For me, this has been the hardest thing to call. I really have no idea, and that's what I love about this Rumble. But if I was putting money on it, I would put it on Punk. I'm not sure I'd be making a safe bet though, because I'm like, whoever loses whoever's of Punk and Cody that doesn't win the Rumble will win the Elimination Chamber most likely, like you just said. So in essence, Punk can afford to lose in the Rumble if it's somebody that's costing him the match, and then they make a feud out of it, because that's what people will remember. But Punk probably also wants to win a Rumble. And, Triple H may not still think about how Cody smashed the throne. Like, we don't know these things.
I think he does what's good for business, but yeah, that's a good point.
You just never know, and I agree though. I think he's past that. I think he's grown. He's matured. Like,
I think too, burying somebody in an angle is kind of different than burying somebody in the press too, because it's like I think that Triple H understood that Cody Rhodes never didn't respect him, because Cody's got a lot of respect for Triple H.
Cody's in better positioning than CM and Punk in that aspect because of the Colt Cabana podcast.
Yeah. Well, so you're saying you're both saying Punk. I was debating it back and forth. I'm gonna say Cody for the reason that I think I think the back-to-back thing, putting him in an elite club, I actually think is pretty important, especially if you don't know what you're going to do with him at Mania. So I think Punk had his really big moment just returning. So I think giving Cody the really big moment of winning the Rumble sort of at least gives him a big moment in the recent fans' history, so that if he does not win at Mania or something like that, he's not pushed that far down the card. He at least made it all the way to possibly being there. But it is a very tough call. I mean, I can see.
You got me flip-flopping now, dude.
So let's do some choose your own adventure shit. So let's assume that Punk wins, because that was 2-1. Who does he challenge? Does he just immediately challenge Rollins for the belt? Or it feels like Punk is somebody who's going to string it out a little bit, or is it just obvious that it's Rollins?
It seems obvious that it's Rollins. It seems obvious. And I'm like, if that's so, but there it is though, like being so obvious, there's got to be something to it that throws us off,
right?
And that's where I can't see that one coming. So Man, they got us good right now, and
They do.
it's a tough call
It's
because
exciting.
usually I love it.
Because I think
Yeah,
what
it's
we're all
exciting.
hoping for is something better than everything that we're coming up for that we haven't thought of yet.
Yes, exactly.
And we already
So,
know, like Triple H, like I could say Triple H has been on a roll,
yes.
with the way he's been putting together these pay-per-views, the way he's been putting together these cards and stuff like that, and these storylines. Like he's very hands-on on making sure that every stone is not left turned or unturned. Like he wants to make sure that every basis is covered and keeps us on our toes, man. Because this is probably like the most exciting like era of wrestling since the golden eras, the attitude eras, the ruthless aggression eras. Like this is the most exciting. Like the pandemic era, but this era, it's been top notch, man. Like
It's
solid
wild
looking through and through.
because like Triple H, they were coming out of last year's Mania with probably some idea of what they wanted to do next year, but they didn't know they were going to have The Rock, and they certainly didn't know they were going to have CM Punk. And those are two recent. I mean, they kind of probably knew they might have The Rock, but there are so many things that impact that. His age and injuries and movies and the writer's strike. Punk, I'm sure they weren't even dreaming they would have. So they probably had a lot of good plans in place before they knew that they were going to have these two huge chess pieces. It's
Yeah.
so Triple H got
And
a tough job ahead of him, but no one's more fit for it.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he knows what cards to be pulled. He knows, when to go forward and when to pull back. Like he knows when to do all these things. So that's what like you have complete confidence in what he's gonna do with these next couple of events. Like they're gonna be amazing, regardless of how things play out on the screen. Like that he's putting together solid productions through and through, and it's not gonna stop with next couple.
Yeah. So say Punk wins the Rumble. Do you have him wrestle at all before Mania?
It would be nice to see him wrestle before Mania, but do you want to risk potential injury? Do you want to,
Right.
like those are things to think about.
Especially with him.
Exactly. I mean,
If
he's not getting younger.
No. He's not getting any less fragile. Like
And that's it.
any more, whatever. Yeah.
I
I
didn't
don't
catch
want,
some of his stuff in AEW. I didn't catch some of his work there. So I don't know how he was being handled over there. I don't know how safe he was as far as like his matches, but I
It
mean,
was consistent with him in the past. I mean, he did a dog collar match with MJF that was pretty intense, but also he's a smart worker that can make something look crazy without it being too scary. It's like
gotcha.
so. What you say, Sean?
I just feel like with how Punk was in AEW and compared it to how his return has been in WWE thus far, if this was AEW and Punk had just returned, he'd have already been wrestled, Gunther, all of the Imperium single matches on Raws and SmackDowns twice a week. He'd have wrestled like 7 to 8 matches by now.
Yeah. The gloom would have been off the rose.
And this is why I like how I've barely seen him. I thought that maybe before they had made the announcement about him coming back next week on Raw, the one you're watching currently, I was thinking that maybe he was going to make a surprise, appearance that night because they hadn't announced him, and it was like the day one. I'm like, how can they have day one without Punk? And they let you know right then and there. They're like, Punk won't be here tonight. Tune in next week for CM Punk because tonight we got The Rock. Tonight we got.
Yeah, it's like, don't worry, we got something for you. We got a good promo by Cody Rhodes.
Yeah, I actually missed the Cody promo.
It's good. Jay?
Did I catch that? I'm not sure if I
It was
caught,
it was early in the show. It was, I think it was it was after the women's match that opened it.
Okay, he was addressing Shinsuke, right?
Yes, which
Still on that.
I did see that. Yeah. I did see it.
Let's talk about him too. There's another name I can't believe I left out of people that are just like, what do you do with Shinsuke? The guy certainly earned he's at a real high point in his career. He still has the best entrance music in wrestling as far as I'm concerned. And the stuff that promo with Cody Rhodes, with like all the, a lot of it in Japanese and all the magna,
like the anime, the cartoons. Yeah,
it's really dope. So what do you do with him during this season? Does he get left out, or is there a place for him on the card?
Maybe if
they were smart, and I know they are, in the past when like Shinsuke has started to bubble a little bit, like, and then the end of the feud culminates, they don't do anything with him in the past after that. They let him float around, and he's just there.
The Vince
It's
McMahon way.
time, right? We're not working that way right now. So I'm thinking, obviously I think I know how this Cody Shinsuke thing is going to end. Cody's going to obviously overcome him. It's going to be a struggle to do so, but because they found this new way to like translate what Shinsuke is saying to people, just simply with implementing subtitles and some cartoons, and he can still, brother, it is cool to watch. I love it. Like, I love how he's like just so cynical.
Yeah,
it makes me glad to be a viewer though in those moments, and I want to see more. So I think that he's just going to find a new target. Maybe somebody approaches him after the match backstage, or something happens where he can bring what he's got here and just loop it into the next feud that he's going into it with, whoever it may be. And I think maybe he can be a guy to help elevate somebody new.
that's a good point.
Definitely. Yeah.
Any thoughts on Shinsuke, Jay?
He's a solid talent, man. Like I said, I do appreciate what they're doing with him now. Like in the past, like when he was on SmackDown, I couldn't really get into him 100%. I mean, I liked what they were doing with him, but it wasn't this. Like, I prefer him to be a heel, to be honest. Like, for me, it fits him more. His character, it fits his style and his actual presence. Like, as far as like what you said about like elevating another talent, like easily pull someone in and you once more. I mean, they easily segued it from Rollins into Cody. It's really just a matter of picking the next rival for him, and then they'll keep him relevant and keep him in the spotlight.
Everything that Shinsuke does is dramatic. Everything in the ring, the way he moves, the way he comes to the ring. So it really makes sense that he be presented in that way. And it's like, I think it's dramatic, but still high action. And it's the stuff he did with like Boogs, I mean, it was sort of entertaining, but in the end, it was like it didn't play up to his strength. I mean, the strength of the entrance music was sort of what they were really playing up, but like, that was classic, like old WWE one-dimensional. There's nowhere to go from here.
It was just really fun. It was really fun and really energetic. But again, I prefer my Shinsuke on the dark side.
Right. You don't bring in one of the greatest Japanese wrestlers of the past 20 years to do that.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, you wouldn't do that to the Great Muta. You wouldn't do that.
Oh, Vince would have in the 80s.
Oh yeah. But it's under Vince's, regime.
Yeah. That's why Sting didn't go there until Sting still should have waited longer, because there's no way Triple H should have beat him in that match.
No.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
And the end of that didn't make any sense either. Like, the NWO came out to save Sting.
It was just like they just put a bunch of guys' names in like a hat and decided whose side each was going to be on. It was like reminiscent of the Invasion angle where you had WWE people like fighting for WCW. You're just like, what the fuck is going on?
A cluster F. You know what I mean? It was bad.
The pay-per-view that killed wrestling for like 10 years.
So do you guys think that they're gonna? Do you think they're gonna try and incorporate Shinsuke in the Rumble?
Well, that's what I'm thinking too. That if Cody loses, he feels like the way to really make that happen. And with there only being a few weeks for the Rumble, if that isn't the way they're going to go, they probably got to wrap up the Cody storyline with Shinsuke between now and then. Which
I think that's how they set it up. If you continue to watch, I don't know if you saw the Cody promo when they said like tonight, Cody challenged him for tonight. Shinsuke said next week.
Next week, all right.
And I think that how they building it is like how the blow off will be. Like that's the blow off next week. In my opinion.
And by the time this airs, that'll have already happened, and that does make sense. So that puts I mean, we haven't even talked about other people who might be in the Rumble, because I just don't see there being a surprise person challenging Rollins or Reigns. I think we already know that Rock is put his sight on Reigns in some way, shape, or form. So Reigns is either going to be fighting The Rock or Cody.
But even with that, though, it's like you got so many other contenders vying for Reigns' title. You still have the guys on SmackDown that's not being rolled into the guys on Raw. You still have AJ Styles. You still have LA Knight. You still have, of course, returning Randy Orton. Like, you have so many people gunning
Good
for
Lord,
Reigns.
I didn't even think about Randy Orton. How do you not get
it's like you have so many people gunning for Reigns. Like, is it really viable to put The Rock in that running as well, too? like, would it be a smart move to have him gunning for him, or should we maybe transition to something else, a different storyline? It's a lot going on.
Rock
I forgot all
versus
about Orton.
Rock
Yeah.
versus
Jeez.
Romans is sounding in Australia for the Elimination Chamber is sounding more and more likely to me. That feels like something that because then it kind of sets the plate for having
It's a
Mania be.
one-off.
Yeah, and I think, but
Yeah,
the
it's a
other thing you
one-off.
could do is you could put Rock in the Elimination Chamber, and then he's in a match where he doesn't have to do a lot of work, and he's at low risk for injury. Well, I guess it depends. I mean, it's a high risk environment, but he wouldn't be in there for very long. So
Yeah, he'd probably be like elimination number 2 or 3 or something like that. Probably 3. Yeah. If you're talking about in the actual elimination chamber match, yeah, he'd probably like number.
Well, I guess if he's in that, he'd have to win it.
If he was in it, he couldn't go 3. He'd have to be the second or last one to go if he weren't to win because he's Rock.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Who's gonna stand there? Him standing there
who would pin
the
him?
entire time feels like a distraction.
Who's pinning Rock?
That's true. Yeah. So yeah, I don't see. I guess him in the Elimination Chamber doesn't make a lot of sense because if he's
But
gonna win,
but at Elimination
Right,
Chamber against
He
Roman
wrestled,
in a
yeah.
solo match does
Exactly.
make sense.
Is
But
that a one-off? If they do that one-off, that'd be great.
yeah, but do you risk having Roman wrestle before Mania and possibly get injured? Because it's like he's gonna have to carry the Rock a lot through that match just because the Rock, the mind is willing, but the body isn't. Based on his match with John Cena, he had a lot of injuries and he gutted it out.
And that was a decade ago.
That's a good point. That was a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But he still seems to be pretty fit, though. I mean, granted, age does take a toll. It plays a factor, but he seems to be pretty fit. He seems to be, physically there to actually go through a whole match. But
he does. But when I picture the current Rock running, I don't know what it looks like. Like I can't picture him.
I haven't seen that, so.
Like in that he's gonna have to do that at some point or something resembling it. It's
like you're gonna get some mad cardio in.
Right. I mean, even Roman, like he barely and that's something too to talk about. Like Roman has barely wrestled last year. I mean, he wrestled I think maybe 10 or 12 matches.
Keep in mind, no, he's not wrestled on TV, but I am almost positive that these guys stay active in the ring, training.
Yeah,
multiple days a week, wrestling matches with each other, not on TV, just to keep the reps in.
But guys like that, it's like they're not going to add bumps to their bump card, like when they're not, like the calluses aren't there. They're not going to actually hurt themselves too much at that age.
Truth. But Roman's a big match guy. Yeah, so like when you call on Roman's there to work, and that's what he's there to do, and he's going to do it. And I don't think Roman's really much of an injury risk as much as Rock is.
Yeah, I think the big if is Rock is if some bone tearing off, some tendon tearing off of some bone, like
something crazy,
tearing both his quads.
Yeah, he's ballsy for doing it. I can't believe he's like to get in the ring again. Like there's almost no upside for the Rock to get in the ring again. It's all downside.
Yeah, because let's be real, he's not going to take the belt. Like, even if the belt is on the line, he's not going to take it. He's too far into his Hollywood career to even focus on holding the title.
The Rock is there to help solidify Roman's legacy.
Right. That's what's beautiful about The Rock. He's actually doing it for the business because he doesn't need the money.
Yes. That's the beautiful part to me. And that's why they'll take good care of him. And that's why he may not, the only reason he would get injured is because it's his own fault, whatever it is. Or if something goes wrong when he's going off the rope, it's not going to be Roman's fault if he doesn't.
Well, that's interesting too. I was thinking about the other day that Triple H is. I know there's other examples of people who've done this, but I don't know there's anybody at such a high level that I know guys like Dusty, but Triple H really understands what it's like to be a wrestler in the modern age. Vince McMahon, he wrestled some matches or had some street fights, but like I do think that it's different when Triple H knows what to ask of wrestlers, I think, in a way that Vince McMahon does. And then Vince McMahon was like, hey, fucking tape it up, put some spit on it, you're going out there. And I'm betting that Triple H has at least has more appreciation for that.
Yeah. Triple H's bedside manner, if you will, is a lot. It goes a lot further with the guys of today. He's just more hip.
He's also a guy that didn't rely on, he obviously did some big spots in his career, but his career was built for a long time. It was like he had some injuries, you know, probably part of the way that he built his body up and stuff, but he didn't do a lot of risky stuff in the ring, you know.
Mhm. Yeah, his spots were really like it was tailored for him to take those bumps.
Looking back too, I can't recall visually ever seeing Triple H do like a top rope splash.
Right.
Only middle rope.
Yeah.
I don't think I've seen Triple H climb past the second rope.
The highest he gets is when he's giving somebody a pedigree. That's about it. You know.
I think Kane might have been like this most like safe, like non-active physical worker besides Triple H that I can remember.
Yeah.
Kane is infamous for like doing the least.
Yes. He, as they just mentioned on Raw, was in 18 Royal Rumbles, and Kofi Kingston's coming up on 16 to see if he accidentally eliminates himself again this year. Any thoughts on what Kofi's going to do with the Rumble? Because that was that last year or the year before? I don't remember when that happened.
I feel like he's actually slipped up like twice now, maybe.
Yeah.
Or
Oof magoof.
Regardless, I don't have a clue. I never know what he's going to do, but I imagine it'll have something to do with like walking on 10 people's shoulders. Maybe they hire some security guards to stand there and like they film they form this human ladder.
The handstands that he was doing. Like,
that's been one of the best things to look forward to in the Rumble every year. And that to me is why Kofi, not why, but a big reason why Kofi's going to be a WWE Hall of Famer.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt.
I remember there was a time, I remember listening to like Mike Johnson and Dave Scheer about 10 years ago, and they talk about how they're going to run out of people to put in the Hall of Fame. I think that was more of a state on how shitty of a job Vince was doing building new stars. But now it feels like there's an endless number.
There's so many.
There's so many big stars. You know?
So a big thing that I've heard from people who say they don't care about being in the Hall of Fame, say like Chris Jericho.
I would say Chris Jericho. Yeah.
They don't care about being in the Hall of Fame, they say, but one of the biggest reasons they say they don't care is because it's just in WWE's imagination, because there's not a physical location for it. But think about how they did those shows like Most Wanted Treasures, and they like went and grabbed like all this crazy lost memorabilia, paid you know the money. I think
Mick Foley hosted some of those, maybe.
So where's all that going? You know what I mean? So obviously they're making a museum of some sort, but it might also be able to serve double as a Hall of Fame, a physical Hall of Fame.
The other thing too, it's like, though they say that about it not being important, but once they're there in the ring giving that speech, it becomes important. And it's like, it's easy to say that, but like, you've seen a lot of guys tear up. You've seen a lot of guys have emotional moments, and the fans make it important. And that's really what the Hall of Fame is not about. It's not about who hit the most home runs or threw the most touchdown passes or whatever. It's about giving people a moment to say thank you to the fans, and the fans to say thank you back. And the WWE does a good job of that. You know?
Yeah, it's like you said, like in the moment when you don't have it, you know, but when you actually have that moment, that's when it clicks for everybody.
Yeah. So any thoughts on this year's inductions, Jay? Anyone you think? I mean, my first thought is you're in Philly. Paul Heyman seems like a logical person. I mean,
thought he was next up anyway. I think they had announced it. He was.
Oh, did they?
Yeah, I think they announced it. Can't remember exactly everyone, but I believe they announced.
Wow, maybe.
Was that the announcement Triple H was making? Was that like the big Triple H announcement this week?
Oh, on Peacock, it could have been. I totally.
I missed that. Okay, that makes sense then. All right, Hall of Fame.
Yeah, because there's a couple other people I just can't remember off the top of my head. I know for a fact that my name was it.
Yeah. It's interesting too that there was talk years ago of whether WWE should do a 2-day WrestleMania, and people were always like, "There's no way they shouldn't do it." Now I can't see them not doing it. Like, it's the only way to make a weekend out of it, and they have enough matches. Like,
said it the other night.
They have enough talent.
I said it the other night after Rocky came back, and I said, I texted my buddy. I said, "Thank God that they made WrestleMania 2 nights."
Yeah,
literally. You can't fit all of that into one night unless you're going to do a 7 hours long super show, and halfway through, people are going to be falling asleep, no matter how exciting it is.
Well, let's talk about that then. We got WrestleMania. We got we have two we have 2 nights, 2 matches will close the shows, one for each. I'm not really blowing you away with my math skills right now, but what do you think those 2 matches would be? I will say I'm still holding out the hope for Punk Austin. I think that is a WrestleMania, that's a match that you got it. If you have the chance to make it happen, make it happen. And I think Punk Austin and Roman Rock, to me, feels like WrestleMania is, you can't beat that. It does leave Cody Rhodes out in the cold a little bit, but someone's getting left out in the cold a little bit, and I believe Triple H can find a way to bring them back into the warmth. So that's what I'm going for. That's what I'd like to see. I don't know if necessarily what it's gonna be. So yeah, actually maybe we'll do that. We'll do a round of what we'd like to see, and then what we think it's gonna be. So that's what I would like to see. Anyone want to jump in? I know I just threw this at you guys, but I'm guessing you've been thinking about it to some degree over the past few months.
I'd like to see Seth versus Cody. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
No. Go ahead. You already started. Go ahead.
I'd like to see Cody versus Roman at WrestleMania, but I really only want to see that because I don't think he's finished the story last year. If that wasn't the case, it doesn't even come into the fold for how the season has been unfolding this year. Right.
Well, the similar problem with Sami Zayn last year, I'd say.
And that's why they gave it to him the month before WrestleMania.
Right. And Sami Zayn's, I would say, been pushed down the card. Not how do you not with all the names you have, but
Well, what you're doing is you're not really pushing him down the card. It's just like he's being pushed down the card, and he's making that middle card stronger by being there. Right. So that makes the whole, everything just a little bit better.
He could be brought up at any moment too.
Anytime. He's one of those guys you can just rely upon, and he's able to deliver every time. And on the other hand, I'd like to see Punk Rollins. But dude, and that's what I think I'm going to see is Punk Rollins, and what I think I'm going to see is Cody Roman. Excuse me. What I want to see is exactly what you said. It's WrestleMania. If you can pull up the big stops, pull out the big stops. It's not one night only, but for each of those top matches, it's one night only.
Yeah.
You got Roman and Rocky on one night, and you got Punk versus Austin. I don't think anyone involved would have a problem with Austin and Punk headlining night one, including Cody Rhodes.
Right.
I don't think anyone involved would have a problem with Roman and Rock headlining night 2, including Cody Rhodes. Because if Cody Rhodes loves this business as much as he thinks he does, I think he's got to bite the bullet, take one for the team right now, and have faith that his story will be complete when it's time. Because right now, it's not going to hit the same as if it did it last year, and it seemed like they're making up for it.
Right. Yep.
Because the momentum isn't there.
Yep. Agreed. Jay, your thoughts?
My thoughts, what I want to see, I'm going to go with Seth and Punk, just due to the fact that they do have that little bit of, I guess, underlying history. It's already been mentioned and already been, noted that Seth has his hang-ups with Punk. So I think that'll make for a nice little, in-ring rivalry and some chemistry there. As far as night 2, Undisputed Universal Championship, I'm going to have to go with Roman Reigns. And I would say Cody. Yeah, Roman Reigns and Cody. Again, I agree with what was said about the story not being completed and maybe postpone it for a later date. But at the same time, though, it's like when you really boil down, like who's really fit, who's really ready for that stage, I would say out of everyone, Cody. If it's not going to be Punk, it has to be Cody.
That's the thing is Punk's not going to be around for. I mean, he could be around the WWE ecosystem for a few years, but he's not going to carry the company like Cody Rhodes is being set up to do.
No, Cody is the traditional babyface. Like he is through and through the blue collar workers man babyface. So he would fit that mold. As far as what it's gonna be,
you know what it is? It's almost like Cody Rhodes is Luke Skywalker and Punk is Han Solo to some degree.
Exactly. So it's like you got those two opposing figures. You know, like you have the clean cut, wholesome, by the book worker, blue collar. Then you have
The wild
I'm
card.
playing by my own rules.
Yep.
I'm a
Flying
wild
by the seat
card.
of
I'm
my
a rebel,
pants.
but
Yep.
exactly, I'm gonna
Anti-hero.
get it done. But you're still the hero. Exactly.
Yep.
So as far as what it's gonna be, now that's a tough one because as much as I would like to agree with Punk and Austin, um, I have to say, ooh, it's a good one. I would say probably Roman and The Rock potentially, depending on what they do with him in the next coming events. And I would say for night one, it would be Seth and potentially with an interference from possibly Damian Priest, because you know he's still trying to cash in
That was actually the next thing I was
briefcase.
going to bring up. Is I think that
Yeah.
briefcase is a year long, and I think isn't Money in the Bank the first pay-per-view after WrestleMania? I think that's
I
what it
thought
was.
Money in the Bank was like June or July, but maybe that's how
Yeah,
it
I think it's
used to
like
be.
July. Yeah, it's a July.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It's right. For some reason, because they had that Puerto Rico show. That's where the money. That's where it was last year, wasn't it? Where he won? No, he wrestled Bad Bunny at that show. I was thinking that he
Yeah,
wanted at that show, but no, he didn't.
yeah, he wrestled Bad Bunny on
Because it
that
does
shit,
feel
but
like he's been carrying that briefcase for a while.
he's
And,
had it for a while.
you know,
He's had
lots
it
gonna.
for a while. So I could see a potential cash in. Will it be successful? Who knows? But there could be a potential cash in at
On
WrestleMania.
who and when? On Rollins or Punk?
I would say Rollins. I don't think he's gonna
So you,
traverse the
I
Punk
think Reigns
situation.
is saved from the bullshit of money. I think they're
Yeah,
not going to
yeah,
put him in that
yeah,
bullshit.
yeah.
yeah, he's out of it. But
My
as far as like, go ahead.
my question was if Damian was to cash in at Mania on
Mhm.
Seth, that means that Punk has to lose.
I think Punk can lose.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. There's a good chance that he could lose because right now Seth is at the pinnacle right now, as far as popularity, as far as like fanfare, as far as what he's been able to do in the ring. Like he's at his top game right now. So it's like for to put him against Punk and potentially Punk lose that, it wouldn't be too far of a stretch, and it wouldn't. I wouldn't consider it to be too damaging on Punk's behalf as far as him actually losing that.
I think Punk's in the Jeff Hardy position to some degree, where it doesn't matter if he loses; people are still going to like him as long as he's well booked.
It's not going to shoot him down the card. Like he's still going to hold his position because it's Punk, and people have been waiting for him to come back. People have been waiting to see him in WWE. So no matter what lane they send him down, I think he's going to be safe. It's just a matter of will Damian ever cash in successfully this briefcase, or just in general, will he ever cash it in?
Well, that's a tough thing. It's like for him, the history has been that even the Jack Swaggers of the world cashed it in and win. I know that's a long time ago, but like, do you have him lose? I mean, who do you take the belt off of? Or maybe you have him go for Gunther, because that was actually going to be my next question is who do we, my thought was Shinsuke against Gunther. I think that could be a really fun program and an amazing match. The idea of maybe Damian going after it could be good, though. I still don't know that they should do that. You guys, any thoughts on
I think they're trying to keep. I kind of feel like they're trying to keep Gunther on that same trajectory as like they want to see how far they can build him up as far as being like this unbeatable, unstoppable force. And then
Until there's a
maybe
new
when
guy
he
that can beat him, that
exactly
can come in,
exactly
that's believable.
yeah like
Powerhouse
current
Hobbs.
roster.
Bringing Powerhouse Hobbs from AEW, man. That dude belongs.
That'll be
WWE.
crazy.
Or Wardlow. You could bring Wardlow too. Wardlow would be
Yeah,
nice.
Warlow. But yeah, I think the current roster, what they have right now, he's pretty much mowing through them. Same thing as Roman Reigns. So right now, you know, for him to lose the belt, it's not the wise decision to make. So they're going to try to have him with that belt for as long as they can have him with. So for Damian to cash in on that particular title, I don't see that happening as well either, because then there's potential that he could lose it.
Yeah,
and they don't want to do that. So
I could see Punk winning against Rollins. The only reason I see that is because Rollins is back. His back has been really messed up.
Yeah.
His back has really needed a break, and he's just beat up right now. And I feel like he has been such at the top of his game that if he lost, he's another one that's like, Jeff Hardy and CM Punk's. He can lose and it won't affect him. Because he's held that title since the onset of it, I believe, right?
Yep. He won the
right,
tournament.
the inaugural. Yeah, he's the inaugural champion.
He works all the house shows. He's literally like one of the toughest human beings on the planet because of being able to just wrestle through all of this stuff. And with Punk coming back, if Punk wins, that's when I can see Damian Priest trying to cash in, successfully cashing it in to get a match for once, and then losing, but only because of an interference, perhaps from an outside thing. But I don't see Damian Priest cashing in at WrestleMania. If anything, it would have to be like a tried attempt beforehand or way after, or make the next pay-per-view after. Like maybe at WrestleMania, but I don't see it. I don't see it actually working.
What do you do with the Judgment Day at WrestleMania then? Because it doesn't seem like they're going to be main event. Rhea Ripley will be in a main event. Her match will be heavily featured, I'm sure. In Dom, you got to give him something. He had one of the biggest matches last year. I mean, what do you do with those guys?
Unfortunately, are you gonna have to do tag matches, like a three-way, like a triple threat tag match?
That seems the most likely way, or have one be on the out, or a tag team and have one be on the outside or something like that.
I mean, does JD McDonough, no offense, even count at this point?
Based on what I just saw, the Miz was arguing that no, it does not. He was saying that the stipulations were very clear.
Tell me when he's telling lies.
Yeah, tell me he's telling lies.
I feel like you gotta group up. You gotta group up the Judgment Day if that's the case.
That's pretty much
against who I don't know. Against who I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, especially now that the R-Truth thing isn't really a feud. It's not like to have R-Truth turn on them with two other guys feels like a waste. It feels like almost like a Saturday Night Heat match,
Shotgun Saturday night, Sunday Night Heat.
Yeah, Sunday Night Heat. Yeah, that's what I remember. Saturday Night Thunder.
Yeah, honestly, I'm trying to really think about who's viable tag team competition for them at this point. Who's on the roster that's really solid enough to go against them.
Or what do you, because they kind of run Monday Night Raw, but they're still not, it's still kind of based around the women's championship. They're still not in they're talking in the Roman picture, and they're really not in the Seth Rollins picture. It's at some point they're going to have to go one way or another, but they're very popular. I mean, they're my favorite actor in WWE.
Could Damian cash in on Gunther and then Dominic get jealous, and then we have an in feud with Dominic and Damian?
I would kind of like what they did with Finn and Damian, almost kind of like that spin.
Something just along those lines, and I just feel like Damian could go. I mean, Dominic could go double heel. Like he's such a heel, he could go double heel. And Damian got the face in him. Damian's a baby face at heart. I feel like he's also a great heel, but he's good at both. And he can pull off either. He's cool enough where the people are going to get behind him when he's a good guy. And he's got the size to him. He can do some ill moves. He's got a great look to him. And his size tells stories on its own. Yeah. I think Damian can put Dominic over in a nice feud for that. And depending on, I feel like it's going to happen regardless if titles are involved or not, eventually.
Yeah. Because it's only but so much you can do with them, especially with them being so stagnated in the tag division. You have a bunch of guys who, for the most part, can hold their own to where they could be their own individual champions. You have a former Universal Champion in Finn Balor. You have a former U.S. Champion in Damian Priest. And, of course, you have Dominic. I didn't agree with it, but he was once upon a time the North American champion. So it's you an attack champion. So he's you have all these past solo singles champions. At some point, they're going to have to disband and do their own. like it can only go but so far.
The thing that's
whole
tricky
Justin
though is
bit.
I don't think Finn Balor has meant this much in a long time. I think he means even more now than he was Universal Champion. And Dom, they just got. I mean, that was just the perfect stuff coming together. 9 times out of 10, you put a second generation star in that role, it's not going to work out that way. Yeah, that was the combination of good luck, good work, and opportunity. But it's like I don't know that to put him on his own, they're going to have a really good storyline for him. I mean, to keep his momentum going. It's because
So do you guys potentially see him going babyface again, or do you think they're going to kind of stick him in that heel role for a little bit longer?
Who, Dom?
Damien, not Damien.
Oh,
Dom.
Damien.
Dom, yeah.
Dom, I think might be sort of the Christian Sammy Guevara type, where he can be a face, but then he's going to turn on you eventually every time, and you're going to fall for it every time. I think he'd be able to play both sides. I think he'll eventually, because people like to boo him so much, he'll turn face, but then he'll flip at some point. You know, he's got to be like the Miz. I think the Dom is sort of going to be like the Miz, where he might not always be the best wrestler, but he's going to develop into a very good asset for the company. Because he has to have a good head on his shoulders to be able to have handled everything they've thrown at him in the past year so successfully. It can't all just be good booking, you know.
And look how young he still is.
Yes, very young.
He's extremely young. His father is one of the most legendary performers in the industry's history.
Eddie Guerrero, yes.
Very much.
So 2 names that haven't come
he
up.
He had to slide that in there.
I loved it. I loved that he did it. Babe is alive.
There's 2 names that occurred to me that we haven't come up yet. Logan Paul and Brock Lesnar. Now, it's very easily Brock Lesnar could stay out of this WrestleMania, just because of the sheer number of names in it. He's just coming off of a big run. Though it's also tough to think of a big show without the beast incarnate. And Logan Paul is a spectacle. He's a showstopper. He's going to get you a lot of views. It feels like he's going to have to be on the card there somewhere.
Did Logan face Bad Bunny yet?
No, I don't know if they've announced that. It feels inevitable, though. You have to wonder whether those two, who's going to carry who in that match, you know?
Yeah, the star power in that.
At this point, I feel like they could carry each other. Like, Logan's been busier. And I feel like I could trust Logan in the ring of most people at this point. That
Logan, and when he saved Rey Mysterio, but also wasn't in the right spot, is a tale of 2 Logans. It's like, because that was, you could tell when you're watching that, ooh, something weird's happening here. And like,
he admitted on his podcast that he messed up.
Yeah.
He wasn't close enough.
But then he also said that Rey didn't fully make it either. He said, what I heard is they both sort of admitted didn't go right, but that Logan should have been closer to catch him, and it was sort of a miracle that he did get that, which to his credit that he did. So it's sort of like, you know.
Yeah, tale of 2 Logans.
Yeah. Is Rey healthy now, or is he?
No, I think he's still got the crushes. I think he's still on the crushes. Because
you could do the rematch with Rey at Mania if he's ready, but I mean, you probably want to keep the belt on Logan, but you want to give him somebody like, you know, he had the match. You have to give him somebody who's going to play to his strengths, like somebody who can give those spectacular moments, you know, like he did with Ricochet. You know, maybe
like
Shinsuke.
A high flyer.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, that might be good for Shinsuke, but I wouldn't want to see Shinsuke lose. Like seeing Shinsuke lose to Gunther is fine. Seeing him lose to Logan Paul, I think, is not going to do much for his momentum.
That'd kill his momentum, but you also can't make Logan lose to Shinsuke, really.
Right. It's not good. It's not the right matchup. I would fear that the territory they'd put Logan's promos in would also not be great. Like, they've done a pretty good job of like doing a better job with the way they handle race, like, you know, since the Vince McMahon and the do-rag era. And that was one thing I did like about the Shinsuke promo, is like it sort of did play into some, you know, some cultural things, but they weren't really playing on stereotypes, you know. So
I do have a question since we're on the topic of Logan Paul. Like, has it been announced like who he's actually facing, or is that the last match tonight to be decided?
That's actually,
like, I guess
I don't know. I don't know who he's facing.
Because they got the United States Championship tournament going on. I think the finalists are like Santos Escobar and
that's probably going on right now, because we were actually recording this during the first SmackDown of the SmackDown of the year is going on right now.
So I think
Andrade could come back.
Yes.
Yeah, but I hear a lot of people saying like Santos is everything Andrade should have been. Like, I've heard people saying that.
Yeah.
Like maybe it's not true, but a lot of people are feeling like, yeah, he's pretty much living up to the potential that honestly. So
The Andrades and the Miros and the Rushes of the world, like it's like they're all guys that sort of in their own way belong in the top, but also kind of don't. Like they're great workers, but I don't know who to compare them to from the past, but they somehow don't, almost like Matt Morgan, somebody who seems like they have it all, but when they get to the top, it doesn't all work, you know?
Chris Masters, Gene
Yes.
Snitsky,
Yeah.
and shout out to
yeah,
Snitsky. He's a professional. I just feel like these are the types of guys that were like at the highest point of the mid card.
Umaga.
There it is.
Yeah.
Umaga, yeah,
Yeah. Even
Umaga for
Rikishi,
sure.
you know?
I was thinking Rikishi.
Yeah.
I was literally thinking Rikishi.
Yeah. Who's,
Yeah,
I mean, that
Rikishi.
dude's, it is pretty amazing to think about the Samoan legacy in the WWE. Like, even, I know they're all cousins to some
Insane.
degree, but the ones that are even so directly related, that's going to be a really fun match when we do eventually get that, whenever that Roman versus Rock match happens. It's, that could be the Rock's last match. I wouldn't be surprised if it was. If he gets injured, he's insane to come back. If he gets out of it without getting injured, he's insane to try again, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that'd be insane, man. Like just, and I think that's what I've been waiting for too. Honestly, it was cool to see Cena back in the ring, doing his thing, you know. But see The Rock and Roman just knowing that family dynamic and that history, like that's for me, that's everything.
Yep.
Speaking of the family, do we see Jimmy versus Jay at WrestleMania 40?
That's a good point. We haven't talked about them.
Jay
That
talked
feels,
about that.
yeah.
Jay talked about that. I'm not sure. I think he did an interview recently, like it was an article that was printed where he said like that's what he's building up to is a potential WrestleMania moment where he faces his brother one on one. And that's something that's like a dream match for the both of them, is what he told,
Actually, at
press and
WrestleMania.
everything.
Yeah. Because they'll have Solo come out with Roman probably, and that'll be his role to be there with Paul. But yeah, you got to. I think Uso versus Uso is probably it's a good way to go. And then too, it's interesting to think that they have for however these matches are going to end, they already have an idea of the storyline. So it's like, are we going to say that match happens? We're going to continue to see after that match, Jay and Jimmy on opposing sides? Are they going to reconcile? Like what is left of the bloodline coming out of WrestleMania? And I think that is one of the big questions too, that when Roman does eventually lose that belt, what does that really mean for Roman?
That's been my question. My whole concern this whole time has been like, the longer he holds the belt is the longer like the power accumulates. And if you take that belt off of him, say you do it a year from now, he's going to take like a year off.
Yeah.
And then come back.
He has to do like a road to redemption storyline. I think it has to take everything out of him, and it has to be about him clawing all of his way back up.
Yes. He's stripped down to nothing. It's like he went to family boot camp, and they stripped him of his entire everything. Everything that Roman has worked for is zero. Right. And he's barely recognizable anymore type stuff.
You could even say the match with The Rock, if you put that at the end, that could be where even if he beats The Rock, he could somehow, the way he wrestles the match, he could lose his family. Like he may still beat The Rock, but come out no longer with the respect of his family. And that could be the final nail.
Oh, you got all the uncles around the ringside. Like,
yeah.
Oh my God. This is the greatest story being told in wrestling in a long time.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's so many valid elements that I have like legitimate interest in. It's crazy. Like Usos, Sammy, Solo,
yeah.
Roman, the Wise Man, and Rocky now. But even like Roman's Rikishi, like you said, Rikishi, you could bring all of these people in.
Bring them all back. Yep.
And they have a role.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's why I was speaking to like the family dynamic. It's like it's so many of them that you can just kind of piece into the storyline one by one. Like there's so many of them, so it's just like so many different angles and dynamics you can go with that.
It is wild too. I was watching a while back, I think one of the original Starcades, and there was Paulie Dangerously managing two of the Samoans. I think it was the Samoans. I forget what the name of it.
SWAT team?
Yeah, that's what it
Wow.
was. And it's just like Paulie's roots with these guys go back a long way too. It's such a beautifully well told story that it's very rare in wrestling. But it does raise the question too that it seems like it's WWE in the past has had a heel, probably had more success with a heel champion. Triple H, certainly when he had the belt on himself for many years as a heel, I think believed in a heel champion. The idea that eventually, whether it's at WrestleMania or down the road here this year, Cody Rhodes will eventually go into the John Cena role and get that moment. What do you do with Cody Rhodes once you turn him face? And do you think it'd be interesting to see what a face champion looks like in WWE? I know Rollins is a face, but I'm still considering Roman's belt to be the most important belt. So what is it when the face is the top guy in modern WWE?
You have to have a strong heel chasing him.
Yeah.
And you got to be a fighting champion that is standing up for all the good and taking down all the bad. But the bad coming after you has to be really bad to make you look strong as hell and brave, because these guys are going to be throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at you at every corner of every turn. And every time you prevail, the crowd sees you in a higher light.
This is Cody Rhodes you're talking about.
Cody's the one that can be the face.
You compare, you said everything you just said is way more true about Cody than even it is about Punk. Because Cody is the guy who's going to fight. He's going to fight every match. Punk's not going to be, his body can't do it. Cody Rhodes, with half his chest ripped off, is still out there wrestling. He is the guy you're talking about.
Right. And you can't hate that.
No.
I feel like Cody's just got a long career ahead of us. And I think because people have been so tied up in his return and the story that if it doesn't happen now, Cody's done. He's not ever done. Cody's going to be wrestling longer than Ric Flair.
Old WWE. I think a lot of fans now are still caught up in the way Vince McMahon booked. And I think a lot of people who don't pay as much attention to the backstage stuff don't understand just how far Vince McMahon is away from having any control over creative WWE at this point, and how it's never going to happen again.
Even further now, because Kevin Dunn is now no longer.
Kevin Dunn's gone. Yeah.
Hallelujah.
It's tough though, because Kevin Dunn, he's definitely a controversial guy in WWE, but a lot of really great moments happen because of him. And it'd be interesting to see what happens next with WWE. I think they have good people to fit in.
It's scary though at the same time, because it's like I've always felt safe in knowing that the WWE is owned by Vince McMahon. Even if I hated what I was watching and I didn't watch it for 5 years, I still had this loyalty and love in my heart for the product, because I knew who owned it, what the history was, where it came from. But now with Endeavor involved, I think that they have the company's best interest in hand. And I'm pretty sure, because it's such a cash cow for them, that they do have the best interest in hand.
And they believe in Paul Levesque, which is.
Are we going to see WrestleMania 75? Or 100, whatever the case, because that's the road it would have been going if Vince was still in charge, or if Triple H were the one in real charge and the owner. But because they don't even have majority ownership, and Vince
not even a McMahon really working there anymore. I mean, Vince is technically, but he's not actually doing. He's more.
This didn't go to Vince's plan. Vince's plan, in all his interviews ever, was stating, "I'm going to give the company to my children.
Yep.
Shane and Stephanie will run the company." And that was pretty much in every interview ever stated. And that's not how it's going. So my concern is maybe a few years down the line, Endeavor wants to merge fully with WWE, UFC. And now we have just we got a friggin' super arena in Las Vegas, and there's octagon on one side and a ring on the other, and we alternate between matches, but we have to satisfy everybody. So there's UFC and WWE. I don't want it to go there.
I don't think combining them makes a bigger cash cow than having them separate, though.
They're special because they're separate.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because they're alternatives to each other.
I also think we're going to see Stephanie McMahon back sometime in the not too distant future. I think she's going to return to the company at some point because I think it's clear
Triple
the
H.
reason she left was because of Vince, and nobody has a bad word to say about Stephanie McMahon. And I actually too, she went to BU. I didn't know her at all, but she was a senior when I was a freshman. Even people I knew back then had nothing bad to say about her, and she was a daughter of a billion. I might have told this previous podcast, but one of my friends years later told me this story that he was friends with, I didn't know him at the time, but he was friends with Stephanie when they were at BU together. And he saw them moving in and he saw Vince put like a full love seat like couch on his back and carry it up like 3 flights of stairs by himself. And this was like in like the late 90s, so Vince was already quite rich and had no need to be moving his daughter into BU by himself. But that's Vince.
That is Vince for sure. I love to hear Vince stories. Like,
I actually have another one too. There was someone else I know was in the early 2000s, worked for a financial company in Boston, and they were doing some work, and they had a meeting with Vince and Shane. And Vince and Shane came in, and the first thing, and they handed out copies of the Wrestlemania 20 DVD to everybody. And these are a bunch of financial guys who have no interest in this. And the first thing Vince acted is like, just get it out of this way. Does anybody want any autographs? And nobody took him up on it.
Really? I can believe that. Nobody knew who he was. Oh, that's that fake stuff.
Well, I think they didn't want to. I think they would be embarrassed to do it. Like, it's like, because nobody, like, who in a business meeting is going to ask for an autograph? And the fact that Vince brings it up makes it even more. It's like, do I do it to be polite, or do I look even worse if I do it? Like, this is a room full of people who are all making like these. It's like, I just thought that's the
yeah, the awkwardness that must have been in that room. Oh my goodness. Especially
too, because I think Vince lived in the wrestling bubble for so long. I don't know that he knows how to operate outside of it. So like, and he has a Donald Trump thing where he's never really been accepted by, the mainstream the way he wanted to. And I think every room that's not a wrestling room that he walks into, he's treated much differently than he is.
Reminiscent of Ric Flair when he did the Kill Tony podcast. Did you see that?
No, I the last I saw of Ric Flair, he was messing with some UFC fighter in a bar, and it didn't look like it was going to end very well for him. But
so Ric Flair's just so used to being champion, I guess pretty much everywhere he goes, but he only travels in a wrestling circles. You know what I mean? Like, he's pretty much just a god anywhere he goes. But he, I guess, got asked to be on this Kill Tony podcast. I had never heard of that podcast beforehand.
It's a Joe Rogan. It's one of the guys that's on Joe Rogan. It's Tony Hinchcliffe, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It was like live from I think the Comedy Store. Maybe.
Yep. It was like comedians just roasting. Yeah, you know what I mean?
A roast like podcast.
And Ric Flair.
I think what it is they do stand up, and then Tony roasts. He roasts. I think maybe stand ups or something. I don't know. I'm just.
I still don't know. I just know that Ric Flair was there, and he just tried to talk. Like, he kind of brought the mood down in the room right away. Everyone's telling jokes. No, it's Ric Flair. First of all, Rick didn't get like this big welcome that he was expecting. Yeah, and he started talking about
Hollywood's not going to give that to you. The Hollywood
he started talking about his kid. He started talking about his kid that passed and the heroin and the drugs, and brought the whole room down. But then he was like, oh, you guys aren't listening or respecting the story. He's like, I would never disrespect anyone who spends and gives their time to a thing like this. Basically just like getting in his feelings, and then was quiet, walked off the set. And then everyone was just it's like probably 4 months, 5 months, maybe.
Wow, I can't believe
I mean, time moves weird now. Maybe it was 6.
Yeah, maybe it was earlier today.
But I feel like it was like summertime, like late summer, early fall.
Flair back in AEW to me is just a sign of AEW's another step turning into TNA.
They got Jeff Jarrett and Karen Jarrett too.
Yeah. Flair's in AEW. Yeah, he's
being paid by Woo Energy Drink, not by AEW.
Oh, really? How much money is Woo Energy Drink making? I'm not to throw shade on it. Ric Flair opened a financial company at one point, which is hilarious to me because that dude has. It's his own admission. If he made $1,000, he spent $1,500.
He spent it. He was the Rolex wearing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He was spending it at the bar.
Yeah, dick waving, like
private jet flying.
Oh, God.
And when it's not a private jet, he's just letting it all hang out with his bathrobe on the plane ride from hell, right?
He's a head of a financial company.
Yeah. I think he was with because his son-in-law is that Conrad is I think Conrad Thompson, who's a big wrestling podcaster and kind of promoter, and he's his one of his kids, I guess, is married to. I don't even know.
Yeah, it's something like that.
He's married. He's related to Flair through marriage, and he sort of helps him do. He sort of helps set up that final match thing with Jarrett. That I'm glad I didn't see. But Conrad is a guy who has a financial background himself, and he sort of I think tried to lend his name to it. But what a joke! It's like I don't know. It's like who's a bigger embarrassment now, Flair or Hogan? Like it's
Hogan's kind of fell back.
Really
Hogan fell back a little bit. I feel like when Hogan does interviews now, like he's a little more mindful of like
of not saying the N-word while he's having sex with his friend's wife.
Things like that. Yeah. But luckily Ric Flair is just like the writer of his own demise. Yeah. And that's the problem with him. It's like Hogan's good at playing like Hulk Hogan.
Yes. Better than anybody. He's better at doing that.
Eat your vitamins. Just do that, Hulkster. We love it.
Yeah.
But Terry Bollea, like we don't need that. And Ric Flair is just he's not, his the real name is like Flair, but you spell it differently. So he's always been Ric Flair.
Yeah.
And he doesn't know anything else outside of that. He's the nature boy, bro. Like that's it. That's it. Nothing outside of it. And if he's not in wrestling, he's in a bar talking about wrestling.
Yep. Yeah.
Like wrestling is his life.
Yeah.
That's it.
Andrade's actually his son-in-law. I just remember that. He's married to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Who unfortunately, I don't know how long Charlotte's going to be out for, but that
full circle, that would make sense of him coming back. Full circle. But what he mentioned, that would make sense of him coming back because Charlotte or Ric Flair would be the ones to usher him right back into it.
Well, Flair's too busy in AEW. So that's probably why Andrade left.
Flair did something. But Flair did something that like got him a little bit in hot water recently too, and I don't remember exactly what it was. Headlines come through.
He said something on the mic that didn't go over well in the crowd. I know that. And then a friend of mine sent me a video that I think is recent of Flair getting into an altercation with some really big name UFC guy and him getting up in Flair's face. And the guy was showing a lot of restraint, but Flair was drunk and just being a dick,
So like ever since that little gaffe on the mic, I don't think he's been on AEW TV.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Because what they're doing, Jay, is that like with Sting's retirement match was announced for next year, and because Rick has it's a tight thing with him back in the day.
It's this year now though, because it's March.
True. Yeah. It's in March?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't realize it was that soon. Have they picked an opponent yet?
That's really close.
No, not that I know of.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, even if we don't even know if it's going to be a singles match or not. Right?
I would see what I can see is Darby turning on him and like having it be versus Darby.
Or even have it just be a respectful match against Darby. It doesn't have to have a story, Yeah. AEW does plenty of matches with those stories.
Kind of like a passing of the torch in a sense.
Yeah,
kind of like a passing of the torch.
Yeah.
And it would make sense because they've worked the most together. They have the most story together, if any. And unless you bring in somebody from Flair's past, which I'm sure Tony could afford to do, but that's all they do is bring in old, and I'm surprised they didn't like bring in new people this past week on Dynamite. They did bring in, oh my God, the virtuosa Deonna Purrazzo.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm sorry. No disrespect, but she can't cut a promo that I buy into.
She's not
sounds like no, bro. And that's the problem. It's like the internet has made every wrestler a superstar. When back in the day, Deonna Purrazzo, who's a great talent.
Yes, agreed.
Don't get it twisted. But she's not the it factor. Okay. And like, even in the women's division, she's not a Sasha Banks. She's not a Mercedes Moné. She's not a Charlotte Flair. So why did she get a special introduction like on AEW Dynamite? Half of the arena didn't know who she was, but you're doing that for every single person who has somewhat of a name. And it's kind of just like, it just makes things go down for me.
Right. And they all have a belt, and the belts don't mean anything.
And there's too many belts for me to keep count of, which is like they're coming out with even more. Eddie Kingston has 3 like titles. It's a triple. Like, come on, bro.
Yeah,
it looks cool.
Yeah, Jay.
I can't keep up with the belts. I can't keep up with the name. That's why I had to literally ask you. It was like, okay, what belt was that that he has? It was like, it's too many of them, man.
They don't mean much.
There was a wrestler, I forget who, but it was an AEW wrestler who was just like on an interview talking about it. It might have even been Moxley. He was like, yeah, it's for the friggin', he's like the Grand Rapids Mid-South friggin' Canadian destroyer, friggin' overseas welterweight, multi-faceted multimedia title.
I'm gonna bleed on it so much, won't be able to read it anyway.
Even he, titles at this point. Former AEW champion, was like low key shitting on it.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of people low key that work for AEW that are low key shitting on it.
Ever since Cody left, it's been downhill, bro.
Yeah.
Ever since Cody left,
volumes for your company.
Like, I mean, they chased Punk into the WrestleMania main event. They basically chased him out of the company, tried to make him look like the biggest asshole on the planet, and he walked right into what would likely be the WrestleMania main event.
And I don't know who they can thank for that, Tony Khan or Jungle Boy. But
the Bucks, they deserve a lot of credit.
No, facts. It's the Bucks. And when you said actually earlier, guys from AEW that you could see in WWE or would want to see in WWE, you said Kenny Omega, right? Rob, you said Kenny Omega?
Yeah. Kenny Omega. Yeah.
So how would you see Kenny Omega working in WWE? Where would you place him in the card? Who would you have him feud with off the bat? How would you bring him in? And would you give him a manager to talk for him? Or would you let him cut his own promos?
And I'll add this too. Consider the fact that Kenny doesn't have a lot left on the clock because he's right now out with, I believe, diverticulitis. I know I said that wrong. And I think Kenny, if you have Kenny, you're probably only going to have him for a short period of time. So how do you use him best?
Well, I've only seen like probably a handful of his matches, so I'm not sure exactly 100% who I would put him with as far as like starting out the bat, rivalry and stuff like that. I'll probably put him in the trajectory of maybe a potential feud or rivalry with like AJ Styles, just off of the actual magnitude of how that match will play out. As far as having someone to cut promos for him, again, I haven't really seen his mic skills, haven't really heard him too much.
It helps. It helps him have. He made a few too many Urkel references last year.
Okay, so yeah, I will put something. I'll put someone with him. But here's the thing, though, like with that, like who do you have at your disposal to put with him? Because this day and era, you don't see too many like managers or the mouthpieces for these wrestlers. Like you don't see that too often. So
it wouldn't be. I don't think Heyman's the right person.
No. He's still tied up too, and contractually obligated to the bloodlines.
Kenny is an interesting one in WWE because his entire being is not. He's not like an alpha male the way a lot of these guys are.
But he's like very chauvinistic though. Yeah, he is, but he's still chauvinistic at the same time. He still has that ego playing for him.
That's very true.
So it's like for him to go against an AJ Styles, not only just off of like the potential that match could bring in, but just off of their styles being similar as far as like ability in the ring, but their personalities are completely different. Like you have the hardened AJ Styles, battle tested, true. You have the almost in a sense entitled Kenny Omega. Like I am the greatest. You got to recognize that. That's who I am.
And there's a story already there from Japan because they were both involved in the Bullet Club.
Yeah, exactly. So you have that backstory that will play out beautifully as far as like their rivalry. But I think where I would be stumped is just the manager thing. Like if he's really not good on a mic, you have to put somebody with him. But who would you put with him?
Yeah,
Who's the guy from AEW that they don't have anymore? That was like he cut like the craziest promos from the crowd, and he was like his dick had like Dan Lambert.
Oh yeah, Dan Lambert.
What happened to him? Because like he cut some of the greatest promos, and he could go, man, or bring in Don Callis.
I think Lambert worked for the UFC in some way, so he may actually, now that they're owned by Endeavor, he may actually be even more likely. I think he was somehow tied to like a UFC man.
So I guess they don't really have one deal.
Yeah, so he may
So
be
it's a
tied to
potential you
them.
get a 2-pointer. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So
I,
that would work
I,
then. So maybe
I
put him
also
in.
I like the AJ idea, but for me, like a dream match if Kenny came to WWE would be versus Seth because
Yeah.
their body types are
Yeah.
like so
Oh
similar.
man.
Man, I
Damn, I
feel
didn't
like
even think
that
about
match could go
that.
a whole hour, and I would want another whole hour.
Yeah.
Like
I
I
didn't even
really,
think about that, bro. And
That would be
Seth
great.
Rollins is truthfully currently right now my favorite wrestler.
he might be
So
the
I didn't
best to
even think
do it.
about.
Seth
Yeah,
is like
bro.
the goat, bro.
Seth
Like one of the
is
goats of all time.
miles, bro. I didn't even
Yeah.
think about that. It's a great
Wasn't too
substitution right
long ago
there
they
for
were
sure.
saying that Tyler Black couldn't cut a promo. And now we
Yeah,
got Seth,
right.
Seth
Nah,
Rollins. Is,
he came a long way, man. He came a
He's
long
the
way,
drip
man.
god, man. The drip
yeah,
god.
he is.
You know?
Yes, sir.
But it's like
Becky though,
But
even
nah,
Becky's
that'd be great.
not, and Becky needs to be Becky. Becky shouldn't try to be Seth anymore. And I think she
Yeah.
cut back on that, and it's been helping.
right. You either
You know what I
have
mean?
them
She's
totally
making that
together
that
or
that
not.
call back to the man. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's making that call back to the man. She's getting back to the nitty gritty, the hardened Becky Lynch that everyone, respects and everyone loves. So she's getting back to it.
You know who I really like in AEW? Who there's a few guys who I kind of miss watching since I don't watch anymore from the blood drinking incident. Like I miss my Orange Cassidy and my Danhausen's, but like Kyle Fletcher is a guy who if WWE isn't watching, they really should. One half of Aussie Open, the other guy whose name I forget now is injured. That dude is awesome. Like he's walking around with some ROH belt. He's a really tall guy. He's a hell of a talker. He's got an accent that makes you love him and hate him at the same time. And it's like WWE, get him in the Performance Center and get him in the gym, and that guy is going to be a main eventer. I think he's amazing.
I haven't seen enough of Kyle Fletcher like that, but I have seen Aussie Open. I've just not seen Kyle on his own or cut a promo. But what I will say is I've heard like his name brought up like 6 times this week. So I believe it. Yeah, he's making noise right now.
He's I think he's either married to or dating Sky Blue, who's another person who I wouldn't be surprised to see in WWE someday. She just kind of fits into that mold of somebody who's going to be a good action figure and just be good with the crowd. I think those two are WWE bound because that's what AEW really. If you're a serious wrestler who hates the politics of wrestling, now AEW is not the place to be. I mean, that's why Cody and Punk and Jade Cargill, don't want to be the QT Marshall essentially said, I don't like the way this place is run anymore, and left without another job. He was a day one guy.
When it first burst on the scene, it was like huge. Yeah. They loved it over there. All the wrestlers, like they loved it. Talent was taken care of. And yes, one person.
Then we heard about what Vince did.
It would be, it wouldn't be right without Vince.
What do you guys think? Like you mentioned, Shawn, about how you feel that WWE is not the same without Vince. Let's talk a little bit about that. We're probably getting closer towards the end of this. We've been rambling for a while, but let's talk a little about our feelings about Vince now that he is sort of gone and seems like he's going to stay gone. I, for one, will say I'm glad. I always wondered how it would happen. I'm glad it happened the way that it did, not in terms of the women who were impacted by it, but in the way that you had Triple H there to sort of guide the ship. It's that I think is what's best for the company at this juncture. He can be trusted with it in a way that I think Vince actually can. I think Vince has been destroying the asset for years, and I just don't think that the way that he ran his company is conducive to the good mental health of their employees. I think that's something that has changed with Triple H and Stephanie when she was there. So for me, I'm ready for Vince to be gone. I think he was pretty out of touch with what people wanted. I think it's better for the business in general. So how do you guys feel about it?
I don't disagree. Go ahead. You can go first, bro.
Thank you. I would agree with that. It definitely, especially in this time, in this era, mental health plays part in any person's day to day, especially the workplace. You don't want to have a volatile workplace where, you don't know what you're going to get. We've heard the horror stories of treatment of the talent and stuff like this. For him to slowly, but almost in a sense, quietly make his exit or move himself out of the equation. I think that's the best thing for the company because you don't want something like that being tied back to the company and tarnishing the legacy. We all have fond memories of what Vince did during his time and his run. We can date back to, pre-Attitude Era, into Attitude Era, into, Ruthless Aggression Era. Like, he did amazing things for the company, but, like you said, you mentioned, it seems like Triple H has an understanding of what this generation of talent needs, and what's going to propel them forward and have them performing at the peak, at the best. To me personally, I couldn't be happier, of what Vince did. I'm always going to go back and watch those clips and those videos and those, matches and stuff like that. But what Triple H is doing for the company now, it's a beautiful thing.
The one thing I will add, and we'll go to you, Shawn, on this, is after this, is that the one of the reasons I heard that Kevin Dunn left is that he was being pressured to do things the Endeavor a different way than he had been doing, and I heard part of it is about spending less money. So that is one thing that does worry me. This what you mentioned before, like about how in 5 years are we going to be watching the WWE in one ring and UFC in another. Like, there's 1,000 different scenarios like that could play out, where it's like these small changes turn into big changes that turn into no longer feeling like WWE anymore. And that is something that, like, the Muppets were never the same after Jim Henson passed away. And I think that there may be something similar with Vince, where a little bit of the magic may be gone, because now it really is just a business. So,
yeah, that was the one little piece of like yesteryear that was still clinging to modern day WWE for me. It was like, all right, at least Vince, even if he's sitting at home and he has no say in anything, but he's just an owner, I was like, okay, at least they're safe.
Yeah.
Everything else, though, I'm glad he's gone, because it was time. It was time. He wrote his own story. He got to do everything and more that he wanted to do. He created so many memories that I'll still always review and go back to in my life watching wrestling. One of the greatest businessmen, like one of the greatest heels, one of the greatest characters, Mr. McMahon, one of the greatest feuds. He was a part of like my upbringing. So I can't discredit anything he's done as a creative or as a businessman. But what his personal choices were in life that leaked into the professional side and into the public really, really leave a soiled mark on his legacy. And it could get worse for him down the line. We don't know. But I do feel like, whatever you're going to do that's bad, if you don't have good intent, or if you have no intent, you're just mindlessly doing stuff because you can, that's going to come around and bite you in the ass. And, him losing his company, I'm sure he's not sleeping as soundly at night as he was before. And it's one of those things where, like, hey, like I said, it's time. Let Triple H do what he's doing. You sold it to the people that you wanted to sell it to. You didn't have to sell it right there and then to them, but you did.
You got more money than people said you'd get.
Way more. And you know what? Enjoy the life that you got, the rest of it, because WWE is no longer yours, bro.
I just question if he's a man that doesn't have a hobby, I don't think. Like, I mean, he can only listen to AC/DC by
he still hangs around with young cats, dude. Like, he's not 80 in his head. He's literally like 40 in his head, if that. Because I just see the pictures of John, or his birthday in New York, him and John Cena like hanging out with these two young chicks. I'm like, all right, Vince, like, like, live like that, because you can. Whatever. But like, as long as you're following the rules, then that's cool. But if you're breaking the rules, or you're using your money as leverage, and like you're trying to push people into positions that are uncomfortable, precarious, like, dude, I'm not signing. I can't co-sign a lick of that. So
Agreed.
Yeah, and I think it's too is like you were saying with the age, was like, maybe it's like him feeling like he's losing a part of himself. Like, this has pretty much been his life.
Whole identity, bro. His whole identity.
Yeah, it's his whole identity is tied into this business, into the company, into the legacy of building this. So it's like, for him to lose that, maybe that's something that he hasn't come to grips with 100%. Hence the reason why he's still hanging out with John Cena and still doing these things that you would see a younger guy do, but like you said,
My
it's time to hang it up.
and my question is like, does he have a bitter feeling right now? Like, will he attend WrestleMania? Like, just because his wrestlers are there? Like, or will he
That's a good
not
question.
because it's eating at him so much that he's not in charge?
Does
If
it
the
bother
ego
him that
takes
he's
over,
essentially lost his family too? Because it's like him and
yeah.
Stephanie obviously had a big falling out. There's been lots of stories about him and Shane having a falling out. Him and Linda are probably only married because the divorce would be so complicated and costly to both of them. I mean, he lost his family and his business, and he just has a
Behind
big
this,
pile
yeah,
of money.
like,
You know,
yep. It's like money can only do but so much for you. Let's be real. It can buy
What
you
a,
everything in the world, but it can't
yeah,
buy you happiness.
can't buy him
that's
his
a
company
conundrum.
back. You know,
Yeah.
It's quite the conundrum. You know what I mean? It's like a catch-22 of all catch-22s.
yeah.
It's
I
like,
mean,
did you really get what you wanted, right?
right. It's hard to know with someone like Vince, who seems to be so driven by impulse and so driven by just whatever is in his mind. When then at that moment where he doesn't have the power anymore and his impulse doesn't mean as much, I don't know what you do with your days. It's like, you know, I don't see him sitting around eating spam sandwiches, watching The Price is Right every day. It's
Right, right,
you know,
right. No.
No, he's not doing that.
no, probably
Gotta
not.
be a sad day,
He's
though.
probably at
I don't want to
somebody's
see
bar.
that.
Yeah, I know
Yeah,
he
he's
is
probably
still.
at someone's bar or something.
He's
He's
recovered.
in the
He had pretty
gym.
extensive back surgery recently, though. That's one thing I have heard about him is he's still recovering from some pretty extensive back surgery, which may prevent him from even being at like wrestling, especially at his age. It's like
With the mustache grown, okay, I feel like that as well may be him helping to identify his new self.
I think a little bit too. Yeah,
That mustache has to go, bro.
He's
know.
doing that to detach when he looks in the mirror. He was so used to seeing Vince McMahon, CEO of WWE, president of WWE, owner.
I think you're right.
And now the next day after he sold it, he looked in the mirror and he's like, Vince McMahon, I don't own WWE.
Right. Because if
I'm
any
not gonna
wrestler
shave for a
walked into the
week.
locker room with that mustache, Vince would have that guy on TV being roasted that night.
Bro.
Yeah, that
I don't
mustache
even.
gotta go, bro.
It's just not Vince to me. It's like he looks
It's
like he
not.
should have been on Breaking Bad, like at some point. Like I don't know. It's like one of the like characters. Like
He looks like
oh my
somebody who
God.
should have been standing behind Rudy Giuliani at that press conference when the hair dye was dripping down his face. Like he looked like he should be photoshopped right into that reality.
He doesn't even look really like Vince with a mustache.
No,
Like,
he doesn't.
no,
Which
it
is
doesn't
probably
look
how
like
he picks
Vince.
up women.
He doesn't. Like it's just weird to see. It's like
And it's unnaturally colored. It's the
Yeah.
unnatural color is
No.
what gets me. You know,
No, I can't.
I don't know.
But maybe that's his way of coping. Maybe
that's it. That's it. That's what I'm saying. It's like the subconscious goes deep, and when he looked in the mirror and he didn't own WWE, he didn't know who he was looking at anymore.
Yeah,
because that was his identity.
Yeah,
was literally
man.
his identity, like you said. Like
Yes,
it's
sir.
literally his identity. If you take that away from him, then what is it?
It wasn't matching up for him anymore. It wasn't aligning anymore. He had to find the new balance. So
Exactly.
good luck to him
That's
as
where
a
the
human.
mustache came in.
yeah.
Yes,
And
sir.
it's like
He-
I mean, he did muscle his way back and made the sale, but I'm sure this wasn't the way he really wanted it all to end. And I think he's probably spending a lot of time thinking about that, you know, or just doing lines of coke.
There's definitely regret. Yeah, there's definitely regret there for sure. Like if he could change a few things that happened, I'm pretty sure he.
Well, think about it like that too, man. He stayed so busy that he never had a moment to think about any of the things.
And he
that
barely
he did.
slept too.
Yep.
Oh yeah,
because he was always striving to be the best. He was like, I have to beat my competition. There's nothing else I have to do.
That's what I admire about the man, though. I will say that's what I admire about him is his like ability and willingness to be the best.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's what he did. And if you know, he broke rules along the way, like in his father's rules, I'll say, where like, hey, Vince Jr., these territories, we got a thing. This is how we work it. Don't bother it. Don't touch it. It work. We'll be fine up here in New York. Dad, screw that. You ever heard of cable TV? We buy all these things up.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. We're getting all this money now. Hey, Dad, look what I did. He's a millionaire now. But, took the chance on WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And it worked. And
if WrestleMania 1 hadn't succeeded, WWF at the time would have been gone. And it would not succeeded if not for the partnerships he made with MTV, the Cyndi Lauper and the Roddy Piper stuff and all of that stuff.
Cyndi Lauper needs to go in the Hall of Fame.
Yes, 100%.
So I'm going to pose a question for you guys.
Yeah.
had just what you presented, had WrestleMania not go according to plan as they thought it would, do you see WCW still being around, still being dominant, still
It
being
would have, I guess. So you got to think where they were at that point. It was NWA. So then they were probably the most likely people to try a national expansion. But I would bet that if WWF at the time failed a national expansion, a lot of these
I don't
companies
think wrestling would have even seen the light of day.
Yeah, it would have
The
been.
reason Ted Turner got involved, I think, is because he saw what Vince was doing with cable.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think
that's why
wrestling would have been-
WCW was birthed from NWA.
What I think would have had to have happened at that point is wrestling would have been pushed further back in the dial on cable, which back then the dial wasn't even that big. And then there's somebody would have had to have done something that really caught people's attention to build it back up. So you would have had to have that big star, the Rock level star, to come and bring it back. But I think it would have been really hard to talk another, because they were doing some pretty innovative stuff where, like, for WrestleMania 3, you could go and watch it from different locations, and you could go watch it in movie theaters and all this shit. And it's like that stuff that Vince Sr. never would have.
They did a live show in like 3 different cities at once, and then they did like the simulcast, right? Or whatever they called it.
Oh, wow.
That was pretty innovative stuff back then.
Yeah.
That's still a cool idea to do.
Technically risky too. I mean, they were able to sell for 2 or 3 arenas. So
imagine the logistics that go into that, all the people you have to put into place.
Yeah.
Imagine today. It was hectic back then, but today?
That's actually an interesting idea. I wouldn't be surprised. Like, that's a fun idea to do WrestleMania in multiple time zones. So at the same day, so you could have like one in one place, and then as it goes to night, do it in another place. I mean, they
have like the dual screens going where you can see the reactions of the people, like actually partaking and seeing this and that.
And not even to take it back, but you just made me think. So Elimination Chamber is in Australia. That means 4:30 a.m. Eastern time, America, is when it's going to be airing.
Oh yeah, that is a real other part of the world.
Are they going to put The Rock on there for the house for that, and then for the social media clips, and basically not for the live streams? I mean, they already sold the Peacock streams. It doesn't matter who orders the pay-per-view technically.
Right.
So it's
they
like
want eyeballs on that.
They want eyeballs on it, and they got it aired at 4:30 in the morning live over here. So
is that real? Did they already announce that? That's going to be 4:30 in the morning here?
That's where I read that. I might have to confirm it one more time, but I'm pretty sure that's what the time turns out to be.
Oof, that's rough.
So I think what was it? Riyadh for Crown Jewel was like 1 p.m.
Yeah, it's like noon or 1. It's actually pretty
doable. I like it. Yeah.
And I like Saturday pay-per-views now better than
Saturdays
Sunday.
are nice. Sundays I'm a little like still on Sundays. I'm like, I still wish there was one I could watch on a Sunday.
Because it brings back that nostalgic feeling. It's like, man, I remember staying up late watching on Sunday.
But what I hate though is the times that I stay up late, because I'm like kind of an early bird when it comes to going to bed, and I stay up late on a Sunday for pay-per-view and the ending was bad. I was like, oh, what a waste. So I'd rather, if I'm going to feel down, I'd rather be on a Saturday. Yeah.
True. The
one
thing
that makes you sleep it off the next day.
Yeah. Well, now I work from home. I do. I used to have to always drive somewhere, but it's
WrestleMania makes that special. The 2-night WrestleMania makes it special in the sense that that's the only premium live event that we get on a Sunday anymore. Is night 2 of WrestleMania. Yeah. My one thing is that they haven't really established like any dominant night either. Like night 1 dominant over night 2, or night 2, you would think that it would be one or the other, but they did a pretty good job of keeping them even, except for like maybe 37. 37 was pretty heavy on one of the nights, I feel like, compared to one of the other nights.
Which one was that?
Was that the one with Samoa Joe was like in the raincoat?
Oh, yeah. Oh, oof.
The first one after the pandemic, I feel like night 1 was that Austin?
The Austin thing was in Texas, wasn't it?
Yes.
Tampa was the reigning.
So who main evented that one? What was the night 1 and night 2?
Austin versus.
It was a triple threat with if it's a Tampa one, it was a triple threat. Night 2, it was Roman Reigns, Daniel Bryan, and Edge. And then the first night was
pinned them both at the same time.
Yeah, they put Drew McIntyre and Bobby Lashley in the first match on night 1. the first match, and that was for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Was
Bobby
that the
Lashley,
one
another
Drew-
name that hasn't come up yet in this conversation. He's another guy that
Drew.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
didn't
Drew
he
and
just
Bobby
lose?
Lashley.
and Bobby Lashley. Yeah.
Bobby's good anywhere he goes.
Yeah.
Bobby's a long
machine.
time pro,
He's
man.
come a long
Straight
way.
up.
He's a machine.
He's
Yeah,
a guy like
a
Mark
machine.
Henry who came in because they had the right look and the right strength and everything, but it took them a long time to get there. But once they were there, they were just there. You know,
Tell you what,
Because I
when
think they were
Bobby,
missing like the mic skills. Like the mic skills weren't quite there.
yeah.
And so they couldn't really portray their personality. They couldn't get it out to the crowd. But once they kind of acquired those, especially with Bobby, once he started getting on the mic more and started actually giving more of himself personality wise, then it was kind of like, okay.
I think
Well,
MVP
you can only do so much when you're
really
helping give
helped
birth
him
to a
too.
hand. Oh, what are you saying?
I think MVP really helped Bobby in this half of his career as well as the hurt business, man. Like that was just like Bobby's got his own faction now, and I loved like the black and gold, like the whole aesthetic of that really was awesome to me. MVP, and now they got MVP with Omos, and I think Omos is only working house shows. He squashed R-Truth at the house show I was at, and actually he walked out of the garden after we left and almost like walked right past me and my buddy, and they bill him as like 7'3". I don't know what they bill him at, like, but really, really big.
Yeah, like 7'3".
He's probably like 6'10", 6'11".
Oh wow.
It
They
wasn't anywhere
definitely
as
shoot
tall.
him from
TV
low.
helps.
You know, they do a
Oh
good
yeah,
job.
they're like, yep, yeah.
Exactly.
Who did he
Yeah,
have
the
the
TV.
surprisingly good match with? He had a match that was surprisingly good. The last like, WWE televised match I think he had.
Was it Bad Bunny? No.
No, they wouldn't do
No,
that
it
to
wasn't
Bad
Bad
Bunny.
Bunny. It was
I forget who it was,
damn.
but I think it was another big guy.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know, but I think
I think it was Bobby. He was feuding with Bobby.
It might have been. It might have been Bobby Lashley.
I think it was
But
Bobby.
it's like I think
That makes sense.
The Omos thing
Yeah.
really shows that Triple H is smart because Vince would have him out there every week until eventually he's like dressed like the Hulkster and playing a banjo or something.
Yeah,
But like
right.
it's like Triple H knows that you'll bring this guy out like Andre the Giant, like they used to do, and he's a huge dude, and he'll do something spectacular and be out of there before we realize how untalented he really is.
And that's what he's there for.
Right, but he is good enough.
The wow factor.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that attraction. Yeah.
Yep. He's definitely
Right.
someone who Triple H probably wouldn't have hired, but he inherited from Vince and is like, I'm gonna make something out of this guy. I think
And
he's done
because
a
you know what,
decent
you've
job.
been around, you've been working hard. I've seen you at the PC. You do train. You're just limited by your size. So we'll work around that for you because you're there when we need you to be, and you're a good worker. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Agreed. So I
Yeah,
think we
he's
just
like-
hit about the 2-hour mark, so we probably should wrap this up.
Oh wow.
Any closing thoughts on WrestleMania season? I think we kind of talked this up to down. I know we didn't give the women as much attention or the tag teams or anything like that, but there's just so much to talk about. It's tough to get to all of it, but I don't know. Anything you guys would like to see out of wrestling in 2024? I think one thing I'm hoping for is that we'll close on talking about this is that with the recent talks that Warner Brothers met with WWE about potentially bringing Raw to the Warner Brothers networks, which would spell probably a lot of doom for AEW, who's currently tied to Warner Brothers. That's something that is really could reshape the wrestling industry now. Because if the AEW lost their TV deal, there's only very few places for them left to go anymore, and they're not going to be looking good doing it because of the way their ratings have gone the past few years. So that's one thing I'm keeping an eye on this year. Gun to my head, I bet it's probably not going to happen, but I would like there to be a second place for guys to work, a second big company, and I don't know if it's not AEW. Impact is just kind of waiting there. I'm hearing
TNA now, as
Yeah,
of
TNA.
tomorrow.
TNA.
Is it tomorrow their pay per view?
I might watch that.
Yeah, TNA's back. They're I feel like they're doing some good things. TNA, as the name itself being back, it brings an allure with it. And I think a lot of the wrestlers are going to be a lot more excited to just jump at an opportunity to work there.
It's the right time.
It is. And you know what?
The stink is gone.
Yeah. And with AEW's situation, man, I wish the best for them because I want places for people to work. And I feel like Tony's a passionate person. He just needs to humble himself a little bit and take some help from around him. He has great minds around him. He just needs to fall back with the pen a little bit and like give it to somebody else for a while and see how it works out. If he doesn't, he's in charge. But you know what? He lost $154 million this year. So it's just like, you could do better, bro. So like,
there's 10 to 15 people he's currently paying to work for him that could book that company better than him.
1,000%. That would willingly probably do it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's just like they'd be willing to help. And especially with TV deals looming. I don't want to see Monday Night Raw move nights. If it moves stations, I understand. There's no reason you have to move Raw from a Monday. It's synonymous with Monday for 3 decades, if not longer now. And WrestleMania 40 is a landmark event. 40 years of WrestleMania. I'm grateful to say that these WrestleManias go along on my ages. I started watching them when I was like 8. I've been watching since WrestleMania 8 and 9, and I haven't missed one since. And I wanted to be 40 more. I wanted to be 40 more after that. But I feel like this year's WrestleMania is going to be hot. Philly crowd is going to be crazy. I'm planning on being in Philly for the weekend. I don't.
Oh, you're going?
Not sure if I'm going to Mania, but I know that I have some jobs lined up for like some companies around there that are wrestling companies that I'll be working with right in that area that whole weekend, if not whole week. Awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. I don't know what's in store for it, but I know I'll be down there. And just the atmosphere for WrestleMania. I haven't been to WrestleMania since WrestleMania 14. It's grown immensely since that. And, you know, for them to be 40 WrestleManias in is huge. 30 was big, 20 was big, 10 was big, but 40 is amazing. Yeah. And I'm glad they're having it at Philly because it's kind of right in their backyard where they were born in New York. And the crowd is going to be so hot, dude. Like the crowd is going to be so hot. And I'm looking forward to seeing whatever they put together because I know it's going to be memorable. It's going to be legendary. And I'm just grateful to be here for it, bro. Thank you.
They have achieved something that I think Vince McMahon wanted for a long time, is that he wanted to be able to sell. They're now selling WrestleMania based on WrestleMania, not the people there. We now know that it'll be a good card because it's WrestleMania, not just because we know the matches. I think that's what Vince always wanted, but we never really got, because he kept giving us like Randy Orton versus Triple H long after we were done seeing it. I think that's one of the big achievements now, is that it's like all these matches we talked about, if none of them happened, I still have faith that Triple H is going to book an amazing weekend of wrestling.
So, you know who else Vince is happy to? Because they're covering this stuff on ESPN.
Yes.
Cody Rhodes,
Sports Illustrated named him Wrestler of the Year. Sports Illustrated. Yep.
So that was one thing he wanted, was to be named with the real sports.
Yep.
You know what? He might have had a point the whole time, because now that I've recently found out NFL is registered as an entertainment enterprise, NBA, same thing. And then the DraftKings and a FanDuel account, I'm looking at these numbers and I'm like, oh, wow, you know, these games are pretty rigged. Yeah. You know, it might all be the same. It might all be the same. You never know.
Don't get me started on how much the NFL is so pumped about Taylor Swift fixing their entire image. No one talking about beating players. No one talking about concussions. Everyone's talking about Taylor. Like, bravo. But I feel like that in the end, this is not going to end well for the NFL. I feel like.
No, not at all, man. No.
Absolutely not. No, not that.
Once the Swifties are burning those jerseys in the streets, that's when I'm going to start really thinking. I'm all for it. I know nothing bad to say about Taylor Swift. I don't listen to her music, but go live your life and kick ass. But I just think it's funny what's happening with the NFL and her.
But yeah,
a weird.
Yeah, I see clips on like social media of like 12-year-olds like watching NFL games with Travis Kelce jerseys on that are just Swifties. Yeah. And it's like the whole point of the Instagram thing is like 12-year-old, not a football fan, watching a football game just because of Taylor Swift's involvement with a football player.
Yeah.
Like, it's just insane. Like,
I try that her boyfriend there, if they break up, he's not gonna be able to leave the house. It's just gonna be like he gotta
marry her quick, bro.
Yeah, I know. He's gotta lock that down. He's gotta be on his best behavior for the rest of his life. All right, so Jay, what about you? What do you want to see out of wrestling this year? And we'll wrap it up.
I want to see an amazing show, man. Top to bottom. I know it's gonna be an amazing card. Night 1, night 2. it's debatable what's going to be the best one or the best night. Just got to kind of wait and see how it plays out as far as like matches, booking goes. The theatrics, they're going to play it to the theatrics. It's WrestleMania, you know. We got to see who they'll bring out celebrity guest wise, because there's always going to be a celebrity guest.
Right.
That's going to be interesting to see. Maybe they'll bring Kevin Hart out. It's Philly.
Yeah, he's
Will
star,
Smith.
As far as
Will Smith, maybe.
Will Smith. Will Smith is an option as well too. I know they got. Like
he seems to be doing things
Philly
where
guys.
he's trying to rehab his image. I'm sure he'd be more than happy to do something like this.
Exactly. So kind of plug into the wrestling scene. Get those fans behind him. That
get him away from his wife for the weekend.
Yeah, exactly. That'd be a great PR look for him.
Yeah.
Just overall, man, just enjoying it from the comfort of my home. I've never been to a WrestleMania in person.
Yeah, me neither.
That's something that I do look forward to doing one of these days. But just the overall show, man, I always look forward to it. I always tap into it. Never disappoints, never lets me down. So far, I have not missed a single premium live event. That's what we're calling them now. PLE. I'm traditional with the pay-per-views. That's what I say. But I haven't missed one since. Just been a fantastic product, bro. Fantastic product, top notch. I love what Triple H is doing. Triple H is still by far one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. So to see what he's doing on the back end of things and how he's just carrying the company into greater heights and greater things, man, it's a beautiful thing. As was mentioned before, I'm just grateful to witness it.
It's beautiful too, because I remember we used to talk about Triple H holding down people like Booker T and like Rob Van Dam, and then of course HBK and his whole history of just being HBK, pilled out and doing that. Both those guys now are just really the two driving forces of the company. And you throw Paul Heyman in there too and a few other people, but it's these are all people that we are lucky they were the ones that were left standing, that we got the bet that HBK got himself together. That Paul sort of was able to learn to work within the system a little better than he had in the past. In that, it's the funny thing too, when you talk about Punk, it's like, I don't see, people were like, how can he work with Triple H? I see Triple H as Punk as two people who have a conversation man to man. I don't see Punk and Vince being able to have that conversation. I think they're just two totally different people.
That relationship is going to be severed for as long as they continue to live. But with Triple H, he's come to a place of forgiveness, and he's come to a place of openness. He's coming to things open-mindedly versus just being closed-minded. Like, you know what? You were this person back then, but you'll never change. Like, he's actually willing to give people second chances. That's the most important thing in this business.
And no one knows what Vince is like more than Triple H. So I'm sure there's a little bit of Triple H going for every guy like Punk. How he knows how easy it is to not work with, how hard it is to work with Vince. Like so I'm sure everybody who had a problem with Vince, he's got to be like, dude, let me tell you. Like, let me tell you about Stephanie's birthday party.
Exactly.
Let me tell you about
let me tell you what really goes on behind the scenes.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. But all right, man, this has been a pleasure to talk to both of you guys about this. I look forward to chatting to you guys as the season goes on. Maybe we'll do a post WrestleMania show or something, or if there's more stuff to talk about. It's going to be an exciting year, and I think it's really great the direction things are going with WWE. And I had lapsed a few years ago, and I said I'm done with this, but Triple H brought me back. So,
bro, I told you on our last episode, I really dialed out of wrestling entirely, bro. Around probably like when the pandemic hit, or the first time it hit, that's when I picked back on it. Anything prior, that little gap in between, I wasn't watching it, bro. I just
from when, may I ask, like 2016, earlier?
Yeah, like 2016, 2015.
Yep.
Like
sounds about right.
That time, I was like, this isn't it, because they took it into a completely different direction that I was unfamiliar with. It didn't hit me. It didn't resonate with me like it did in the past. So I just left it alone. But then I started seeing things. I started seeing clips. I was like, okay, let me give it a try again. Mind you, I wasn't messing with AEW at all. Went back to it, fell in love with it again. I think that's like the relationship with things that you love. You fall out of love, you fall back in love.
Yeah.
It's just the way of life.
Facts.
I definitely agree. So, all right. It's been a pleasure to talk to both of you. Jeh Inatra, check out your music everywhere it's available. And check out our track together. Put the mic down off Quiet Life, Loud Friends. Anything else you want to plug that you're working on?
Currently working on an EP right now. Also got an album following that in 2024. It's kind of up in the air. Probably features, probably new projects, all that good stuff.
Sweet. Can't wait to hear it. Your music's amazing. And yeah, definitely check out all Jay's stuff.
Likewise.
Thank you very much, man. Shawn, what do you got coming on you want to talk about?
I got a lot of stuff coming out. I got some videos, some music. I got everything, man. ShawnSmoke.com. Keep posted there, or follow me on Instagram at I am Smoke. That's IAMSMXKE, Smoke with an X. So I am Smoke on IG or ShawnSmoke.com. You can find everything. Appreciate you guys, man.
Yeah, appreciate y'all too.
Appreciate
All right,
y'all.
thank you so much.
Meet Ann with wings clipped, quick to flip manuscripts, cause her man went from damaged kid to damn he's rich, but she still can't stand the way he manages to never put nickels in the can for the cancer kids. Plus he cheats at cornhole and brags that he won, so she lost interest like porno after she comes. My DM started jingling, baby, as it was done. 2 seconds later I can hear the snapping of her gums. She calls me half Dodge Challenger, half Lip Gallagher. I'm happy that I luckily sat next to her in algebra. I tried to hold her down, but I just couldn't balance her between the million meetings that I keep in my calendar. Plus odds aren't too sloppy that I know why my cell is blowing up probably, but I should check just as well. Call the cops, see if I can get a hold and tell if that's copyrights yell raising hell inside the holding cell.
Smell the smoke from the cookout. The bushes in the parks with the lookout. Fresh Prince, summertime on the radio. Throwback Friday, yo, the ladies know. Then I'm a smooth type guy. Listen, I'm the shit I need 2-time ply. Part of my soul on my head sky high. The weed smoke cover my body, so I try. Put a scent on like sunblock. Summertime's body season, so keep your gun cocked. I count beers in the cooler, cause when the fun stops, that's when the arguments happen. In the gunshots, it's summertime. Backyards where we play cards. Spitting in cipher, the homie trade bars. Dominoes slam on the table, we take charge. I got a style you can make large.